When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. Earth from a bird's eye view. You should grow feathers and see this too. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. Clear sky. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. Earth from a bird's eye view. You should grow feathers and see this too. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. When you want to get off the darkest ground,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Tour Championship, and welcome back for the penultimate session before we get into Sheffield and the Crucible qualifiers. But for now, it is going to be the story to be written for one of the real contenders for the second World Championship title. Which one of those two players is he going to be? Is he going to be Zhao to arrive at the Crucible as the favourite, as the world number one, or is it going to be the reigning champion that will have one more trophy next to his name after winning the World Grand Prix and the Players' Championship already? It has been 5 out of 5 here for Zhao. In terms of his ranking titles, one of them was a whitewash 9-0 against Yang Mingtao at the German Masters, where it was the last time actually before his return to the main tour where these two have met. They have met a couple of more times this season. I'm going to talk you through that a little bit later on, but for now, let's talk titles and let's talk about Zhao. 5 ranking finals, 5 ranking wins. 2 of them to come in this season, but let's start off with Luca Broussel one against the Belgian Bullet at the UK Championship of 2021, where Broussel was by far the favourite. At that point, you had Zhao as the man emerging from nowhere, and he certainly managed to completely outplay Broussel and win him in the most Luca Broussel style and fashion probably out there by 10 frames to 5, getting himself to win the first Triple Crown event. And now, a couple of years later, as soon as he managed to come back onto the amateur tour, he managed to play really well through the qualifiers and find himself to be the man challenging the very best on the Snooker 2 last season, on his way to the ultimate prize at the Snooker Tour, the Crucible Crown, which he managed to achieve by winning Mark Williams in the final. At that point, we were looking forward to be seeing potential final in between the world champion of 2019 and the eventual winner of 2025 as well, but now it is going to be the time for that to happen, and the Tour Championship, the 2 of the greatest players probably to perform on the 1-year list. Certainly if you talk about titles, reaching finals and reaching semi-finals out there, both of them are going to be looking forward to this clash, but only one of them will be able to extend the dominant wins of the semi-finals against Neil Robertson and especially John Higgins. They've lost 5 frames, meanwhile winning 20 of those among themselves, but now only one of them will be able to get off to a great start here, and you do fancy, from my point of view, for it to be Zhao just way too consistent. If you talk about, he's only had to play 2 matches against Chris Wakeley and against John Higgins and lost only 5 of those frames. Trump had to come back through 3 of those matches because, of course, him not being just outside of the top 4 seeds for the quarterfinals. Murphy managed to beat him to that spot by a couple of, tens of thousands worth of ranking points for Murphy to be probably slightly more consistent than Trump has done in terms of this season, but still managed to come past Mark Allen and Sean Murphy on his way to be playing against Neil Robertson, the number 1 seed on the 1-year list, and managed to perform a really good snooker out there, having a 6-0 win against Robertson on his way to a 10-4 delivery of a performance. As much as, we weren't really seeing Zhao to be playing his A game at the top end of that match, but still there was no real need for it, and the same probably can be said about those couple of frames from Zhao. Could have easily been a 10-0 win against John Higgins, and he managed to keep that sequence of breaks of 60 plus going until the end there and not missing the ping into the middle. That wasn't the case, but in the end, it was only one of those frames there John Higgins was able to win. So, we mentioned about Zhao. Let's talk about the world number 1, the ace in the back. What's it going to be for him this time around? He's managed to break a really good curse of deciders for him. He only needed to have one of those so far in the Tour Championship. Let's see if he's about to face another decider, because the one I'm talking about, of course, was against Sean Murphy. And after having so many of those, 2 against John Higgins in the Masters and the Players' Championship, 1 against Jack Lisowski, 1 against Elias Lesser, and, Matthew Stevens, Gary Wilson, all the numerous losses that he had earlier in the season, he manages to end that, and he manages to end it at the point where it's really going to matter. And something about, you should give it a mention about the titles. He is going to be in the ranking event final number 54 out there. So he's going to be in a real contention to try and make it down to 32 wins. So far, he's got 31 wins, 22 losses. So doesn't seem like he's going to be going too shabby in that particular stat either. But of course, he would like to be joining that elite club of having 32 or more titles and try and get closer to the ultimate man. He's got a couple of years on Ronnie O'Sullivan, and with Ronnie unable to land his number 42 against Chip China at the World Open last couple of weeks, can he beat Trump that delivers a performance against the world champion of the previous season? And well, certainly when it comes to head-to-head, there's not a lot for it to show. As I mentioned, there was a first couple of round matches in 2018 of the English Open where we've seen Zhao to be coming onto the arena with him being around 20 years of age or something like that. He had a really good performance against Trump score-wise. It was 3 frames to 4, and Trump needed a decider to progress past the eventual winner of the Crucible Crown. And then we've seen one match in the Championship League, which was a 3-1 win for Judd. And then, as I say, we come to the big tournaments. A German Masters win of 5 frames to 2 out there for Zhao in his way to be winning the whole tournament in 2022. And then, of course, after his return, we've seen them play half an exhibition match in Saudi where Xington was able to win 4 frames to 3 and got on to win the whole thing and beat Neil Robertson in the final. But ultimately, the only real sign of those two coming at it really well was against Judd Trump at the Champions of Champions, where Zhao Xington managed to win the opening 2 frames. It looked like he was going to be the man to beat until Trump's got on to run to win 6 frames and a bounce and make himself to be the winner of that particular exchange. And of course, in the end, was the runner-up. That was in the semi-final of the Champion of Champions. And of course, he was going to be on the road to be losing his final against Mark Selby. But now he's about to be writing history himself, because could it be another step towards the perfect record there of those titles? Or is it going to be Trump to have one more say in this one? Because when it comes to the finals that he had so far this season, as I mentioned, 2 of them were against Selby. 1 of them was against Lisowski, and it was purely, the brilliant performance of his life at that point for Jack. And despite that being the case, it's still taken all the way to 17 frames out there for Jack to be beating Judd Trump. And now it's going to be all the way down to seeing if the history is going to repeat itself at the match of the Tour Championship, or is it going to be a one-way traffic. Quick predictions, as I say, I feel like, even though you say Trump is going to have a fresh match to come into this one, because he would have been resting 24 hours at least out there because of him not playing yesterday. But I feel like ultimately it is going to be down to trying to take this one all the way. And then if he's going to be able to try and do that in case of Judd Trump, especially at the start, then he's going to be the man to beat. Because for now, to me, it seems like it is going to be the first session to lose for Zhao. So I've gone for 6-2, which, I've never gone with a scoreline like that, but it's based off 2 things, really. He had a session number 1 against Chris Wakelin of 5 frames to 3, and then of course he had 8-0 against John Higgins. So he's yet to be under pressure there quite earlier on. Wakelin looked like he was going to be the man to try and stop him at the first couple of frames, but not necessarily worked out for him. And now it is going to be all down to the performance of Trump. He needs those couple of frames there to me, and then if he gets those on the board, he certainly should get his game underway. And then, of course, with those 2 players being probably, certainly in the top 3 and probably in the top 2 there of this season, when it comes to the long pots, it does seem like we're not going to have the repeat of Higgins or Robertson, where they just couldn't get those chances to be created for themselves, and they had to rely on purely those errors from Trump and Xington to occur, which we haven't really seen too many of at the main stage of the semi-finals. As I say, it's going to be the 2-session match, so the first session is going to have 8 of those frames involved, and then the second session will have 10 of those as well. I did check beforehand, but it does say that depends on the format. We could see a first session to be first to 9 frames, but as I say, there's got a little remark that, of course, it's going to be played in the UK, in the Manchester Central, so that leaves you with a little bit less likelihood of that to be the case, but, always keep an eye on that, because it could still be working out to be that way, as we now are about to welcome the referee onto the match. We've seen some really good performances so far at the Tour Championship. Let's just quickly, run you through the matches that each of those have played. Mark Allen managed to trouble Trump at the early stage of their encounter, 4-0 that Allen was leading against Trump. Trump managed to come back really well after the first intermission and make sure he wasn't going to be giving an inch at the evening session, making 4 frames each, and then despite losing a couple of those frames at the start of the second session as well, finally was able to find himself in a 7-5 lead, take that to 8-6, take that to 8-all there from Allen, but in the end, it was always going to be way too far away there from Trump, and he was able to, at the second time of asking, he could have done that at the 17th frame. He wasn't quite able to do that, missed the raid to the corner, but in the end, Allen was able to take that chance to the 18th frame, but that was about it that he could perform. And now it is going to be down to Zhao. Of course, well, when it comes to Trump, he had a similar performance like that against Murphy, where they were basically exchanging frames throughout the entirety of the match. And it was the first decided, as I say, that Trump was able to win so far this season when it matters. And yeah, when it comes to that performance against Neil Robertson, he certainly was playing well. But there wasn't a lot of resistance and there wasn't a lot of pressure that Neil Robertson has managed to put on towards Trump. But now talk about Zhao, only 2 of those matches that he's played, as he now walks his way past the south sector and makes his way from the right-hand side of the table, where he's going to be probably positioned out there, because he's still going to be the second highest seeded, of course, because of the draw, but also because of, him being up against the world number 1. So yes, Zhao indeed is going to be positioned at the right-hand side of the table, but his matches against Chris Wakelin and John Higgins were anything but a problem for him. But now, another man that has been flying through those gears, and the further he got into the tournament, the more it seemed like he was familiar with the new equipment, the new tip, the new cue, and potentially the new style of play there for Trump. They have been talking about the way that he needs to be sorting out and relying on his strengths of the game. Certainly something that is done superbly well against Robertson. And let's see if he's going to be able to find the edge on Zhao as the world number 1. He's still looking to retain his number 1 spot for the remainder of the season. And look at how well he's managed to finish off the campaign, reaching the semi-finals of the Players' Championship, reaching the finals and winning the German Masters, and of course being very close to reaching their Triple Crown final once again this season. He's managed to reach one of them at the UK, lost out to Selby. Didn't quite manage to do that with John Higgins though at the Masters in the Alexandra Palace. But is he going to be a potential practice for what's about to come there? The referee of the match is going to be Desislava Bajilova. But now Trump and Zington are ready, and we're about to see some action of the snooker. Is it me or is it just like... Yes, and I feel like she hasn't really been refereeing any one of those matches, because she hasn't certainly been refereeing the semi-final, which is, only understandable. Probably would be a little bit too much for the referee to be asking there, to be doing, a potential of 38 frames, as now we're about to get a picture with this beauty that neither Trump or Zington were able to carry out there. It is going to be the title and 175,000 worth of ranking points and the prize money to be collected. It is now going to be a bit of a difference in height out there, but it's still a wonderful picture. There's not now going to be a generation in between those 2 players, but certainly a trophy to try and separate them, to see which one of them will be holding the title, the pounds, but also the wonderful trophy at the end of this potential 19-frame encounter. The first frame is going to be break off by Trump. So let's see what can the world number 1 try and do here. He needs a performance to get underway quickly. Otherwise, he'll be Zhao to try and put real pressure on the ace in the pack. It's a really pacey break off shot. Once again, of course, Trump, being a natural right-hander, but playing some of his shots with the left hand as well. Zhao is going to be a bit of an orthodox player to be up against. So, of course, you need to be bearing that in mind when you play those specific safety shots, but also when you leave a chance away to your opponent. For now, a little kiss towards the yellow from Trump. Doesn't really seem like he affected the starting point for him. And Zhao was only able to separate the reds away from each other. First is still 10 frames. Yes, it is. One of the last times we're going to see that before the qualifiers and the first round of the Crucible. And then we're going to be getting the big cheese guys to be playing up against that and first to 13 frames. For now, it seems like it is going to be Watchalong to exploit his long pot game, but in that cue ball, he's going to be very close to the green pocket, and he's going to be into the green pocket as well. So the red is in, but so is the cue ball, and now it's going to be all down to Zhao to have 4 points on the board, but ultimately having a potential opportunity to try and get that cue ball to be running all the way towards the ball colours hasn't really worked out, and now Zhao himself is going to have a long red available. He's really good at those type of shots, and now look at this. A brilliant exchange straight away, but now it's Zhao that is able to keep that cue ball still bouncing at the table. By the end there, it stops on the blue. First real blood, it seemed like he was going to be heading towards Watchalong. Now that wasn't the case, but the blue are from the lower side of the cue ball. Doesn't seem like Zhao is going to fancy that one too much. One thing he's going to fancy, that's for sure, is the brown to the yellow pocket. Seems to have played that one perfectly into the corner. And look at that positional shot. 3 cushions, no problem at all there for the Cyclone. Does the black pot, do you think? Not too sure. I feel like it's not really going to be down to the black for now. It's certainly going to pot into the right corner, as you can see from this angle. But, you know, he's going to have the pink and the blue to exploit. I feel like the biggest problem for now is going to be to try and get through those reds. But I'll tell you what, seemed like the bounce on the cue ball is going to be way too strong here for Zhao, and he's probably about to find himself with either a very small portion of the black that he can't see, which could still, of course, be enough for him to be taking this one into the corner. He's done that quite well. As I say, you know, it's going to be down to the wire here, which you would expect from the two players, but I do have a feeling that this could be a very one-sided match, and the best thing for it to be one-sided is, of course, Zhao to be the one trying to get away from Chomp, because he has got that momentum. If he can carry it from the match of yesterday, where he only finished the round 16 hours ago or so, of course, Chomp will be finishing his pretty much 40 hours ago or so, after his interesting final frame against Neil Robertson, where it looked like Robertson was going to take that down to 15 frames, but missed the yellow, and Trump was able to clear up from that point onwards. So for now, another shot where Zhao just opens up the angle for the cue ball nicely and takes the red carefully into the corner. Trump is now going to be watching on with, you know, great caution, of course, as he realises that the last person on the World Snooker Tour that you want to be having a cue ball to be drifting towards the green pocket against is going to be Zhao. Another nice cannon towards those two reds. About to take another one of them towards the right corner. Just parries that one in with no power at all. And make sure that cue ball is going to be stuck towards the black with the top side of it to be played. So once again, just a single cushion, and he's going to have 3 reds to choose from. But you feel like at this stage, he's going to try and stay on the red to be taken into the corner, because those are the one that, you know, pretty much every single one of the players would prefer. But ultimately, it's the best possible chance for you to try and stay on the black as well. No need to be taking that one onto the pink until probably this shot here. And then Zhao will give us a huge demonstration of how to potentially try and separate the 4 more reds away from the pack, as he now plays the shot carefully into the left corner. So once again, he's trying to play that one alongside the bunch from the right-hand side, which allows him to be playing those 2 reds into the left corner. He seems like he's going to be taking the straight one here, which will get him lined up nicely. But yeah, 47 points as a potential advantage here for Zhao. So is he going to be a red to be taken carefully? Is he going to try and play for the black here? Because it's going to be down to playing the pink into the corner and then having probably a separate shot on the red. Because I'm a little bit surprised there with him trying to take it onto the pink, because you know, that would probably require to try and get in behind of the red and take it into the left corner here, because those reds are not going to be playable into the right part of the table because of, you know, the bunch being in the way. So now he scores 54 points in total, 50 of those to come on the break. Pink is about to go onto the yellow spot, the only spot which is going to be vacant of those colours, apart from, of course, those 4 reds to be taking the pink spot as well. Another nice shot with the rest, but seems like he's overplayed for the blue. So he's done that before. He may need to use the brown here one more time, but tell you what, it's going to be a horrible shot for you to be played here in terms of taking the brown into the green pocket, but also trying to counter that cue ball to go into the side of those reds. And, well, he's trying to do that with the blue. And it seems like he is going to be happy enough with the reds to be taken into the left corner of the table here. Because, yeah, I mean, Zhao has played the shot in such fashion that if he was always going to miss the contact with the four main of those reds, then he's going to leave himself with a chance to try and take a red towards the left side cushion, make sure that, you know, the red can be dropped in with the cue ball still being quite too far away there from the cue ball, I would say. So still needs to be taken care of. Played really nicely there from Zhao, and now he's going to have a chance to try and score 68 points as the advantage, whilst only having 67 of those at the table. So he now has a look to see if the black is going to be possible into the right corner, and make sure that if one of those four reds is going to be possible into the corner, then he certainly should be playing in behind of those reds. For now, it seems like he's played a really good shot here to try and split the back. So, after having such a long century drought, it's been 7 minutes of this frame time, and Zhao is already going to be announcing himself as a potential frame winner. Although, I mean, he certainly could have done with taking this red into the left middle. You know, Joe Trump is not going to have too much time to be thinking about this one. He's going to come back to the table with, sorry, apologies for that. He's going to be 67 points at the table here for Judd Trump, and 68 of those as the advantage for Zhao. So Trump clearly realising that there's not going to be, you know, a whole lot of value for him to be taking a risky red towards the right middle. So just carefully taking that cue ball to be heading all the way towards the ball cushion and making sure that he gets one more red to be in the open play. And now it's going to be down to Zhao to try and do something with in relation to the pink and the reds, because he's probably about to play the shot with great traction on the white, but also to realise that he's going to have to try and put at least a couple of those reds safe, because as much as, you know, Trump will need to have each of those 5 to be potted there, he's also going to have a great opportunity to have a snooker lined up. There's barely a double kiss to be missed there from Zhao as he attempts to be taking the red into the left corner. Make sure he doesn't give an easy chance away to Judd Trump. And now he's about to have a potential red to the right corner there, which you feel like it was the red which Zhao was taking against Higgins yesterday. But of course, it's going to be anything but simple to try and have that cue ball to be lined up for the reds. And, you know, sort of kind of around the globe and position itself either for the pink or the black. Because right now, with him needing to find a snooker anyway, whatever he manages to do with those 67 points, he's going to have to try and outperform here on the case of Zhao. So it does seem like he's going to have to try and play this shot in relation to having those reds to be scoring with the pink. Works out for him pretty nicely, but at the same time, of course, he would like to avoid losing unnecessary points out there. As Zhao plays an interesting shot in relation to the reds and the colours. So it does look like he's about to be leaving Judd Trump with a chance to open up the score sheet. But it's not going to be easy for him to try and find the shot to be lined up for the black. He needs that cue ball to slow down. Has he overplayed for it? It's going to slow down just about in time that you would feel. Yeah, you feel like it's going to be playable, but it's going to be anything but simple out there for this pink to disappear into the yellow pocket. So as I say, it's fine for him for now. He doesn't need to be finding any more snookers, but look at that cue action, by the way. You know, the trademark shot of Judd Trump, you know, I was watching the video on how he says that he likes to have his bridge a little bit further back, and you've seen that as his game has evolved, he seems to have brought that bridge to be slightly closer. And now it is going to be a pink to be missed, so surely a frame now in favour of Zhao, especially as he makes his way towards the reds to be available into the left middle. So as much as he was on the century break, it still looks like it is going to be a dominant frame win. Although, once again, it's another shot there. It's 3 in a row that Zhao has missed into the left middle. As I say, the pink that is missed at the end of his match against Higgins, the red that he missed against Trump here as well, and now the red that is missed against, despite being 67 points clear and not having loads of pressure on Judd Trump. So, you know, Trump will probably try and exploit the value of a free ball to be potentially available to him. So what's he going to be based off points? 51 at the table. So if he gets the pink in, that gets him with 60 So he'll need 3 snookers anyway, so he can take the blue. But of course, right now with him having a red over the left middle, he may as well try and take the pink away, put it closer to its sunspot so that he can potentially try and use that as cover points for the cue ball. If he decides to be playing a snooker in behind the pink, because he's going to have a couple of those reds to choose from. He's about to be taking the red next to the left middle away and carefully put that one towards the left middle. So once again, he's about to be taking another pink here, which leaves him with how many points? So 59 right now. He's about to take the pink, which will give him 53. So 10 points there. So he can take one more red with the pink, but ideally he wants to be doing and taking the last of those reds with a black. Although he clearly is doing that on purpose to make sure that, you know, he keeps his chances of trying to take that cue ball right next to the black. And, you know, his best chance of, and probably the only chance of winning the frame now with the consistent form of Zhao, and especially his control of the cue ball, probably is going to be down to just, you know, having a free ball to be available. He wants to be on the top side of a pink. At least don't be on the wrong side over there. And it seemed like he's going to be straight, or he's going to be, well, slightly wrong side, but he should be able to actually use that even better. Bounce the cue ball off the right side cushion and try and put the cue ball pretty close to the red. Would have liked it to be slightly further away from the black ball cushion though. And now he finds himself 46 points behind, 35 with the table. So, 1 snooker and a free ball needed. And then, of course, he would have to be taking this red away with a black for good reason as well. He seems to have played this one really well. And if he was trying to utilize the, the jaw of the middle pocket, then he's certainly done that. The red is going to bounce right next to the middle of the table in relation to those side cushions. And, well, what's he going to be now? You know, I feel like it's a no-brainer for Zhao to be taking this from the right-hand side because he's never going to leave a free ball from this position. Very close, really close out there. Just about misses out on the reds, which, as I say, is still going to be fine on this occasion, but he needs to be making sure he doesn't do that 2 more times out there. So Trump is going to have a decent opportunity to just carefully nudge this red away from the cue ball and make sure the white is going to be positioned as close as he can be towards the black ball cushion. He seems to have played that shot about as well as he could have, but still to me, it seems like Xington will have the chance to try and get the direct contact with the red, even if he has to try and do it with a swerver or not. We'll have to wait and see on that, but he nearly finds Trump to be snookered. This is going to be interesting. I tell you what, if Trump only needed to be having 1 more snooker there, he surely would have tried to pot the red with the black, but now it's probably about to exploit the triangle of the red, yellow, and brown, but he hasn't done that well. And yeah, wrong side of a red that he caught, way too much angle on the cue ball, and forced that one, you know, close towards the triangle of the ball colours, but even over the edge there. So it's going to be having a red in the cue ball to be on the left-hand side of those 3. So the red is going to be accessible. It's not going to be playable, I don't think. Although Zhao is the player that you can never underestimate in those aspects of his game. So for now, just taking that cue ball to be a little bit too close for comfort into the right middle as he stays at the table. And Trump is going to be the one trying to find 2 more snookers. Or, of course, it's going to be another free ball that he's looking for. Just trying to send that red on the journey. Didn't really want to have a kiss on the blue. But in the end, it looked like the red was going to position perfectly in behind the blue. Wow, that is a lucky escape there for Trump, because I'll tell you what, he could not have placed the reds any closer towards the blue in relation to the straight line. It is absolutely a millimetre perfect, and he just forces Zhao to be taking a red from the black cushion, which, you know, he's going to get 95 times out of 100, but still, he's not going to be able to play the shot as well as he could have, and he's always going to limit the distance in between the red and the white, which is going to be in favour of Judge Trump. That he's just trying to use those 3 ball colours to his advantage again, and if he's going to have the green to be blocking the contact point, and the cue ball can't get past the green and brown to get through those 2, and it's going to be nicely away for Zhao. We've got a 5-3 win for Zhao to see session 1, see how the frames have been scoring wise. Then might switch to Trump, but should be very exciting both play. Well, yes, absolutely. And wow, this is going to be a really tricky shot there. Zhao has taken. It clearly feels he's got a better chance of trying to take the cue ball on a journey through the right part of the table. And it's a smart short selection because there wasn't probably enough of a distance in between that red and the side cushion anyway. So he was always going to make the contact unless he played that shot a bit too narrow and just a bit too far away from the green side of the pocket. For now, it seems like he's put the red a bit too close to the white, and Trump is about to have another exploration for him to go to on a tour of. And it's another great shot there that he's played. Could have done with the cue ball being slightly closer towards the yellow, but he can't be greedy with this one. And Zhao still is going to be anything but comfortable as he tries to make it past the opening frame where, you know, had he made any one of those two reds into the middle, he would have been lined up nicely for a frame win. Now, seems like he's taking that cue ball wide on a journey. He doesn't want it to drop in because I'm not sure about the free ball situation. Ooh, you know, he would have been fine to be fair, but now it is getting slightly uncomfortable for Zhao because, you know, 2 attempts of a snooker where he was really close, a couple more of those when he managed to have a contact point with the red, but now it's only one more snooker needed, and I'll tell you what, with Watchalong, remember the first frame that he's played against Chipchaya, he needed 4 snookers, somehow an absolute calamity of a performance from the player from Thailand, and Trump was able to take the first frame away. Could it be history in the making again? And remember, he's done that on only 4 colours to be doing, so probably was quite about as impressive. And for now, he's probably just trying to put the cue ball to be safe. Doesn't want it to be too safe, though, towards the green pocket. And he seems to have played that one just about well, as he could have, because, make no mistake about it, it was a difficult position there for him to try and find himself with. Because, of course, it's not going to be pool where you can just plan that cue ball wherever you want. You know, he had to be playing from the cue ball being stuck into the right corner of the table. And now, is it going to be a chance for Zhao to try and finally turn a corner around? Because if I was Trump, I would genuinely be considering, if the opportunity comes his way, to be going for a shot like, you know, if he's got a chance to try and pop the red, I say he probably does it now because he's got that triangle of yellow, green and brown. And surely, with his creative mind, he should be able to exploit that to full extent. Although, he doesn't want the red to be over the middle. He doesn't want the red to be over the middle at all. And it seemed like he got the cover point on the green, but this is probably the time there that Zhao doesn't want to have the red to be given away to Trump. It seems like he's going to be a little bit too close to the green to try and swerve around it. I'll tell you what, this is missable. From the rest shot, it may look like an unmissable shot, and you may feel like it's going to be easy for you to try and pot it as well, but yeah, he's played that one well. He's played this one really well, but has he left the reds? Seems like he hasn't, which, as I say, at this stage is going to be very important there for Zhao, as it just about forces that one to be not quite over the right middle, and making Trump to try and take it into the jaw of the right middle, and make sure he bounces the white to be heading away. Try and get it in behind the black or the pink. Hasn't managed to do that, but has he managed to get the contact on the pink? Yes, he has. Wow, this is a brilliant snooker there. As long as Zhao hasn't got enough room to try and swerve around the pink, this could well be the most difficult of those 3 snookers. But it does seem like he's going to go for a swerve, and he's done that superbly well. And he also managed to contact the triangle of the bow colours, which is now going to be only yellow and brown to be next to each other. So he may potentially switch the strategy, and he also managed to fluke a snooker on Trump. That did get a little bit fortunate on his previous one, to be fair. So I feel like he's not really going to be the one to, you know, cry too much about his luck, which he didn't have plenty of, but, you know, I feel like it's been a pretty 50-50 so far in the first frame. So just try and carefully take that red full ball, but, I mean, it's a shot that would work out against 95% of the tour. I'm not sure it's a shot that would work out against Zhao because, you know, he's pretty much willingly taking this red towards the right corner and potentially trying to leave this one away out there. And, well, this is going to be a miss. Surely a shot that wasn't going to be missed at the starting point of the frame, but now, after all those safety shots, of course, it could be another thing about Trump to try and exploit his game. Of course, it's a genuine attempt there to try and win the frame from here. He's managed to find 2 out of the 3 required snookers that he needed to be looking for. He's now looking for the number 3. He's had a bad contact with the feint, but is he going to get the fortune out of it? It seems like he needed that cue to be heading a bit further up the table and towards the green pocket for this kiss to work out. In the end, he's going to have the left-hand side of the race red to be available to Zhao Xington. So Zhao should still try and take this one away towards the right corner and get that cubel to be heading all the way towards the green pocket now. It's going to be a decent opportunity for Trump to try and take this red with a long shot because, as I say, despite the triangle of the ball colours not being there, at least he's got an option of, having the yellow and brown to be right one next to each other. For now, it certainly seems like he's about to try and do something else here. He needed to find that cubel to be straighter and use the blue and the pink better, to be fair. Still going to be a snooker, which limits things that Zhao Xington can do with this red, but at the same time, with the red being right next to the ball cushion, you feel like he's going to be able to just try and take that one full in the face in full ball. And once again, the previous long red was a bit different for Trump because he had to be bridging over the yellow, over the green I should say. This time around, he certainly can try and go for a long pot of this red to be taken into the left part of the table. Can he try and get this one in? Was he even trying to get this one in? The short answer is going to be no, but it's a really nice line. If the cue ball just keeps running to go past the pink, it's going to be a really tight line there in relation to trying to not go too far away. And it seems like he's gone a little bit too far away to just open up the ability. Despite Zhao Xington to be seeing a direct access to the red, he can always try and play the shot from the black ball cushion. And now Trump is the one that needs a little bit of fortune and doesn't seem like he's going to get it. Those are the killer shots really for your motivation to try and play those safety battles because, despite you feel like you got the snooker, wow, this is a brilliant shot for Trump. If the red is going to stay away from the left-hand side, I feel like it's just about going to drift too close to the center of the pocket. But I was about to say, those shots and Trump showing that again there, sometimes when you've got the red so close to the ball cushion, it can actually be turned into a bit of a disadvantage for yourself. But is this one going to be missed? It's going to be close and it's going to be missed. Wow, 3 snookers Trump needed to find. He's managed to find all 3 of them, and every single one of those attempts was super close out there for Zhao Xington. But now he's going to find himself 34 points behind, 35 at the table. Tactically, Trump should have the upper hand, but snooker matches are won by pointing long balls, and Zhao is a great potter. Yeah, but Trump is going to have the long pot of his game. It's very much one of his best aspects as well. The problem is, of course, he's got the red to be positioned to the right middle, and he hasn't really got a chance to try and take this one all the way towards the black. But now, I mean, if he has a chance to try and take it onto the pink, I say he probably goes for it because the respot, despite being 3 snookers down, it would be an incredible achievement there at the first visit to the table. And Zhao Xington, has managed to work his way really hard there in terms of this snooker battle, but it does seem like it hasn't been enough so far. And now this safety battle is not longer going to be the case of trying to find himself. Wow, that is brilliant. And wow, I was about to say he can no longer afford to be leaving out reds available for Trump, and then he comes away with a fantastic safety like that. Trump, whatever he does, he needs to try and do it off 2 side cushions because he can't afford to have a chance for Zhao Xington to be coming back to the table. Is he going to have the contact? Look at this from Trump. It's going to be super close. Wow. I mean, Zhao, fair play, my man, because he's managed to come away with such a difficult period in the frame, still seemingly coming out on top here. And despite Trump fighting really hard, he's about to drop the red into the corner and find himself at last to be winning the opening frame. He doesn't need to be taking the black here, so he probably should have Trump to be conceding the frame anyway, but he can always try and go for a shot at the blue into the right part of the middle, and he hasn't got it there. Is he going to fluke it into the left corner? No, he won't. So, not sure it is going to be Trump that he sees any point to continue, and he won't. So after all that battle, fighting those 3 snookers, in the end, it's a fantastic snooker, by far the best of those that we've seen from Zhao Xington, that wins him the first frame, and that break of 64 points was certainly a great starting point. He wasn't able to finish off the frame without leaving the Trump to come back to the table. Trump managed to put up a really good fight, but in the end, it was Zhao Xington that had the last laugh, and now it is going to be Trump to try and find himself still in a good place in this match, but certainly now it is going to be a very difficult situation for him to try and find his way out of, because it is Zhao Xington that finds the opening frame win. And as I said, you know, these are the exact moments where Trump is either going to win or lose this match, obviously, but especially the first couple of frames, especially when it's going to be so close, and especially when he had such a long journey on his way to try and find those 3 snookers. He had that red available to the right middle. He decided to try and play the patience game, despite potentially having the opportunity to try and play for the pink. And then the next shot that Zhao has played, he got him snookered with the ultimate difficulty out there. And Trump clearly had no answer to that particular effect. Now it is going to be Zhao Xington that finally finds himself to have 1 next to the frame score sheet. And Judge Trump wins 6-4. He's not going to be able to do that because you don't have 10 frames in the first session. But I tell you what, for me, Trump will do really well if he manages to take this match 4 frames each into the second session, especially from what we've seen from both him and Zhao Xington so far in this tournament. It just seems like they're going to be playing a bit of a different style there. But the problem for Trump is, even with Trump having such a good line at the second session out there, it's not something that you can use against Zhao Xington, because he is the player that has got very much the ability to try and sometimes just trying to click, and he's going to be able to just flick his fingers like that, and he takes his game from a really good level to a fantastic level where pretty much no one on the tour can beat. So, once again, thank you for everyone tuning into the stream. Hopefully, as I say, fingers crossed, as much as, you know, we wanted to see the lineup like this, and that personally, with you know, so many stocks invested in Zhao Xington, I still just want to make sure we see the final potentially of the season. But all I want is 16 frames of snooker. If it's going to be 10-6 and Trump wins, a fair play, and I'm going to be standing up and applauding that. If it's going to be Xington, fine, but make sure it's not going to be another German Masters, another Scottish Open, and you know, another potentially, well, make it at least like a British Open out there. Potential champions of champions, where we've seen 5-all in between Mark Selby and Joe Trump, and then Selby wins 5 frames on a bounce, and Trump has got no answer to that at all. For now, he needs to find the answer to losing out on the first frame, but of course he was, you know, the frame that he lost in a very different battle to the one that you would expect, trying to do that on the safety battle, where Zhao Xington wasn't able to try and find himself back with a good charge out there. So, John, well done. Well, hasn't managed to win the first frame, but he certainly was putting up a really good fight out there. So just a careful shot in relation to this raid. Well, loads of side spin, but not a lot of contact on the raid. And well, I'll tell you what, 4 points that were given away by Trump right at the starting point of the previous frame seem to have cost him quite dearly. Right now, it is going to be a decent opportunity to try and repeat the same story out there, because it's going to be a long raid taken into the left corner, and for now, 1 mistake is equal to 1 frame chance for Zhao Xington. A beautiful long raid taken nicely once again, and now he is looking really lively out there, and potentially going for the yellow or green here to choose from. And severe, brilliant there from Zhao Xington, because once again, Trump, I mean, I'm not sure what he's flying in the air there, but I do fancy why Zhao Xington hasn't stopped there, because if I can see that on the not the best resolution of the screen, then he certainly should see that in 4K ahead of himself. But it just seems like he's in the zone, focused, and trying to take this frame to be following the same starting point as the frame number 1, but just make sure that run towards the finish line is going to be slightly easier for him, as he now gets the line up for the raid. Happy Easter Resurrection Sunday, when Jesus rose from the grave. How's it going, folks? A lovely message there, Ian. And yes, if you are from following the Western calendar, happy Easter to you. And if you are following the Easter calendar, then you know, you're going to have one of those next Sunday as well. But I tell you what, Zhao Xington has had a birthday a couple of days ago, and once again, there's no sign of any parting there, any celebration so far, as it's been anything but a bit of stress for him. 10-4 win against Wakeland, 10-1 against John Higgins. And if you see the thumbnail, you can certainly realise that he can try and take this one to be heading the similar route there, but he just played a horrible shot there of the Reds. It seems to be the one that is actually one of his strongest parts of the game, where he was trying to make contact with the Reds, but seemed like he got the cue ball to be heading way too far. And yep, to me, this red is not going to be available now. There's no way for you to try and swerve around this one. So it's going to be all the way down to back to the basics and back to the safety there, you would feel. Zhao will find himself in a position where just looking to try and get this red to be cannoned towards the right side cushion, but you know, as he thinks about that short selection, seems like he's going to go a step backwards on it and just try and take a careful nudge towards one of those reds. He realises that he only has 24 points of the advantage, and he's not going to have a need to be putting the black to be out of the equation. So just carefully takes the cue ball to be positioned for the bulk line right now. About to have another red carefully taken towards the main pack of those reds and head that cue ball to be heading all the way from the right side cushion and make sure that Zhao is going to have anything easy out there. Happy Easter and bon Pasque, as we say in France. Lovely message there as well. Trump will need to take more long shots. Zhao won't be backing off whenever a possible shot comes along. True, which is why it's very important for you to try and have the run to go your way, because, you know, we've seen that with the match that I was just rewatching today there. See Zhao here against Luca Brissell. Such an attacking performance there, but it did come in two sections of that match. It's the first 19 frames and the next sort of, 15 frames or so, where as soon as you have a couple of those, potential frames that you win, you keep your opponent to be pretty quiet, as you see there, and then all of a sudden you can't stop winning, he can't stop losing because he's got no confidence, and also he's got no momentum to try and take into that match as well. For now, Trump needs to try and make sure that he's not going to be the one trying to chase the tail there, and he needs that bank to be coming to his rescue here, because unless that is the case, and it doesn't seem to be the case, it's going to be another long raid into the left corner there from Zhao, and he doesn't seem to miss those on too many of those occasions. So for now, just having a look towards those two reds at the sort of centre part of the table, which probably does suggest that he's not going to have one of those to be over the left corner, and just trying to use that red as a cover point. Play that shot superbly well there from Zhao, because, he managed to have the red that he was playing for into a safe place, covered up by the red which would have been the most dangerous for him to leave. And now it's going to be Trump that leaves a chance away there. Does he change his tip? Well, I didn't really seem to read anything about it. I feel like, we're not really going to find out until the session number 2 out there, because, the analysis is going to be done on that. And of course, the pundits are going to know a little bit more here. But whatever it is, once again, he's had the sequence like that against Robertson. He certainly had that against Murphy. And he seems to be going for those really difficult long raids. And for now, he's about to have another one missed. Zhao will come back to the table with a potential raid to be available here to be taken into the left part of the table. Trump doesn't seem like he's too bothered about it for now. But as I say, it's it could really turn into a match. And with roles versus the one that he had against Robertson, because, if he takes those 3 of the opening 3 frames away there from Zhao, all of a sudden you'll find himself as by far being the favourite in this match, and potentially to be lined up nicely for those yellows and greens to be lined up now, but ultimately for a comfortable match win as well. At the age, Trump had a lot of a change from his... listen, it's different days there, but I feel like as you try to progress and evolve as a player, of course you're going to try and change the equipment based on the style there, because he's been talking about the way that he hasn't been able to cue as well as he's done in his first couple of years on the tour, whether it's down to him changing his game or down to the equipment, the pace of the table, but all of that seems to have changed dramatically. So he needs to try and adapt out there, because if you don't adapt to the new environment, you're not going to be able to get the maximum performance out of it as well. The English players are deadly when it's in the black zone. Chinese players are better because they excel in long pots. Well, yeah, but I wouldn't really say that, the likes of Zhao Zitong, Weezer and Chang Minyu there, for example. You could put Si Xiaowei, Ding Xiaowei and, the likes of Li Beifan on their day. When they play really well, they're going to be the ones that potentially get themselves lined up for those type of shots into the black ball spot. And then, it's very difficult to try and find them out of that situation. Doesn't want to have a contact on the reds, and he's just about going to have enough of the angle there to try and force that black to be heading into the right part of the table. So far it has been well grafted break there by Zhao, as he's about to be lined up for the black one more time. So just carefully take it into the right part of the table. Make sure you have that cue ball to be bouncing off the right side cushion. Play the red carefully into the left part of the table now. And he's about to be taking a couple more of those reds to try and get him away here from the sequence of Watchalong. And where you can watch live streaming of this match, please tell me. I'm not in the UK. Well, unfortunately, since I am in the UK, I won't be able to help you on this occasion because I won't simply be able to memorize all the channels there. You would have to double check on the official tour website what it will tell you. Based in your region, this is where you can be watching it. But right now, it's another great shot there from Zhao. Doing that from the black is always going to be a little bit more difficult, but also a little bit more impressive. And now, he's about to have a clear-cut chance to try and make it past the break of 64 as his highest point in a previous frame, and try and make it a frame to nil this time around against Watchalong. And it does seem like he's going to have a really good time here around the blue. Well, to be fair, he may have just about underrun for this one, and going to have a chance to be taking the yellow towards the its own pocket. And yeah, he's going to have a really good short selection to try and think about here, because he's got the blue, he's got the yellow, he's got the brown to try and choose which one of those three is going to be the best possible chance. But in the end, it seems like, you know, he's just going to put loads of sight on the cue ball and try and carefully take the reds towards the left corner without, you know, even having... So just making sure that all the phones are going to be on side on the audience as well there by the referee. Of course, I haven't heard any phone calls, so probably it was just a notification. But as much as, you know, Zhao is going to be, you know, immune to any sort of pressure, he's also going to be a human. And sometimes, especially when you're going to be in the zone, you could find yourself in a position where this is the last thing you need, trying to put you off. And now he's about to be having 60 points of the advantage, as he uses the entirety of the pocket, but doing that really wisely because he opens up the angle on the cue ball even better, gets that one in a straighter line in relation to the red, and he's about to take it as the break of 37 points. Of course, he's not going to be able to make a century break out of it, although he might. I mean, he technically has got enough points here, but he's about to finish off the frame encounter as only 67 of those points are going to be at the table, and now Zhao finds himself with, you know, 68 of those as the advantage. So now, a little bit of a delay there by the crowd, but certainly would have liked to realise the red is going to be in there after probably what has happened in the first frame. Trump is still going to be kept very quiet, and exactly what I said, the first 2-3 frames are always going to be with a massive advantage for Zhao because of him coming fresh of that performance against Higgins, where it clearly wasn't tired, let's be honest, because, you know, when you play 11 out of potential 19 frames, you haven't played in the first round. The first round for you in the quarterfinals wasn't that difficult either. Like, you had the perfect setup to be the front runner here in this match. And this is exactly why Trump had to come out with his A game and to just try and play as well as he has done in his prime year of 2019. So far, it hasn't turned out to be the case. But, yeah, Zhao is certainly going to be pretty happy with his performance. You know, although, of course, he wants to demand the best from him, and now finally able to take either pink or reds into the left middle and find himself with the highest break made of the match. Once again, as I say, the sequence of 60 plus breaks, apart from having one of those not to be made in the 11th and the first frame against John Higgins, is going to be on 13 frames on the bounce there. Incredible consistency from Zhao, and now he's about to have, well, I was going to say a potential century hunt, but he wasn't quite able to pot the pink. At the same time, it's still going to be a fantastic break of 68 points out there. And now it is Zhao that takes a 2-0 lead against Trump. And I tell you what, this is looking really nicely out there for Judd. And, well, sorry for Zhao there. It's looking anything but nice for Trump because he still finds himself in a horrible position of not scoring any of those points in the second frame. And now it is Zhao that has got the advantage of 2 frames to nil. Trump needs this third frame, and ideally, he wants the fourth frame to go with it. It's a bit of a package bonus, because for now, he seems like he is going to be spending the majority of the playing time either sat in his chair or playing safety shots, which don't really get him anywhere for now, with him not exploiting enough of his long shot game, but also, when he leaves those chances away for Zhao, you know, it was 2 of those opportunities that he needed in both of those opening frames, but at the end point, he was always going to be able to take both of those frames quite comfortably. I'm not going to say the first one was comfortable. it was comfortable when he was 3 snookers there to try and find for Trump. It wasn't quite the case where Trump was able to find those 3 snookers, but with a fantastic escape from one of them from Sington, he was able to find, Trump to be faced in a snooker, and from that point onwards, taking in the reds and finish off the frame in style out there. Right, let's have a look. In Pakistan or India, is there any website? Not sure, but it should be for WST there, because I'm pretty sure, the thing about snooker is it's going to be UK and Ireland, then it's going to be down to Europe, which is Eurosport, then it's going to be down to China, Hong Kong, potentially Malaysia, Thailand, and probably it. I'm not sure you've got that in India, so you probably should be down to just the website. There's boys on the flyer, and it's strange he's never lost the final 5 or 6 win, I think. Yes, one against Mark Williams last season in the World Championship, one against Yang Mingtao at the German Masters, one against Luca Brissell at the UK Championship, and one against John Higgins Players Championship 10-7, and also the match that he had at the World Grand Prix against Zhang Anda 10-7 as well. The guy doesn't seem like he knows what a close final means, by the way, because so far he wasn't even, 2 frames away from a defeat there, because, anything but that in his match against Bing Tao, but ultimately his closest finals have been this season, 10-7, and against both John Higgins and Zhang Anda, but at the same time, you need to realise that, those matches were with a brilliant finish there from Xiao Xington, and now you can see those two. Closed by Mark Selby and Sean Murphy, but in the end, only 2 of them are going to be standing. Zhao Xington is looking to try and take it away there from Neil Robertson, because, he could still find himself as the world number, not the world number 3 out there, to be fair, because, he's going to be more than 200,000 away of those points from Robertson, but he's still going to have himself lined up nicely for potentially that world number 3 to be taken away from him. In the meantime, it's going to be another decent break-off from Judd Trump, as well as the first frame. And Zhao is now going to have a look towards the right-hand side of the table. By the way, thank you for everyone tuning in. As I say, I just hope that Trump gets this one to be a competitive match, because, we've seen a couple of those in the first couple of rounds. Not so much in the quarterfinals, but certainly nothing of that in the semis as well. And when you've got the lineup like that, the worst thing that can happen is one of those players to run away with it and make it a one-sided match, which is acceptable to be seeing in the semi-final, because of, that always gets you excited and on your feet, that, if you're going to have 2 incredible semi-finals, then surely those 2 players are going to put on quite a show for you into the final as well. For now, it does seem like a bit of a different story here in the first 2 plays, but as I say, just because Trump has lost the first 2 frames doesn't really mean anything. He was able to make a game out of it at the end against Selby, despite being 5-0 down in the final, and Selby probably not having a drop-off in the performance until very much the end of that match. It was Trump that was trying to find steady progress in his match against Selby. For now, another brilliant shot there by Zhao. It seems like it's so difficult to play against, because you think about his long pot game, brilliant. You think about his positional success, even better. You think about his pot success, it's not been bad so far, but his safeties has been really good as well. The standard of safety plays, by the way, in this tournament has been absolutely brilliant. Very few chances to be given away, and one of the players that I will actually say has been having the worst safety of them all, maybe controversial, but Judd Trump is the one that stands out to me to not have the best safety. I mean, he's had an immaculate safety against Robertson, by the way. Let me just put it out there. He was really good against Neil, and he was limiting his opportunities down to a minimum. Not so much against Allen, not so much against Murphy, though, because certainly against Murphy, because I was watching that match from start to finish, the amount and the number of those long shots that Sean was taking, whether it was a positive outcome for him or not, but Trump seemed like he was struggling, especially in the, in the middle part of the first session out there. It seemed like he was going to be slightly, out of his comfort zone. Once again, despite, Zhao Xington not having anything to play of the previous, a little bit of a misjudgment there from catching the yellow full ball from Trump. He still puts Judd in a pretty difficult position now, and probably forcing him to try and take one of those reds towards the right corner. Make sure he misses the blue, though, and he hasn't done that at all. Well, has he managed to get lucky here so that he's got 4 of those, dangerous reds to be blocked off by one another? And even if that is the case, what does Zhao Xington have available in relation to their colours? And it seems like the answer is going to be negative on both of those questions there. Because surely if he had anything on the red, he wouldn't be taking it, even if there wasn't a clear-cut chance for him to try and position for the colour. In the end, he was forced to be taking the reds from the left-hand side, and now it is going to be Trump to try and come back to the table. Ronnie Higgins-Williams could still pot some unbelievable balls. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, it's difficult for them to do it, but when it comes to probably... I mean, it's difficult to try and put one of them because you probably would have to put Ronnie last because, or to be fair, he still sometimes it still comes across with some fantastic long reds. It's just that he doesn't do that so frequently. As by the way, it's a fantastic shot that Trump has played because despite him missing out on the reds, look at the cue action that he's managed to bring that cue ball lined up perfectly underneath the brown, which of course will make the bridging and the positional shot slightly more difficult for Zhao. And if he has left anything to the right corner, if he had, I should say, then, I mean, that's a horrible shot there for Xington, unless I'm missing something badly. But that's not going to be staying at the top end of the table. It's going to go beyond the bulk line. Maybe caught that one too thin. But I was very surprised that he was trying to use only one of those cushions. Surely now it is a chance for Chomp to try and take the red away. Get himself positioned for the colour would certainly help as well. But, well, I mean, can you count that as a position for the brown? It's not a position for the yellow, for the pink, for the black, for the green. So it's blue or brown, but I feel like it's impossible for you to get on the red from the blue. So it limits that down to just the brown, which you can take. And yeah, what's it going to be here for Judd? Because this is anything but easy. Even getting the brown into the yellow pocket is not going to be a straightforward task, but trying to have that cue ball to cannon all the way towards the bulk cushion, the right side cushion as well, and try and bring that one down the table and take it all the way out there. It's going to be a whole lot of a challenge for Judd. And yeah, to be fair, it's probably simple enough of a decision out there. Try and put the brown over the pocket so that, you know, of course, with him playing an extra safety shot here and having a bit of the initiative, he's going to be the most likely of the two to have the next chance. And when he does have that chance and he takes the red, he should have that brown to be positioned very close towards the corner. And Zhao Xington taking a bit of a close line in relation to the right part of the table. Gets a little bit fortunate with a kiss on the blue. So, well, I mean, is that going to be enough of a corridor for Chomp to try and lead that cue ball onto the right side cushion? It seems like it will be, but he still needs to be careful of not touching, especially those three reds at the, you know, slightly further away from that right side cushion. If he was to be taking one of those reds closer to the black ball spot, I'm pretty sure he's not going to have the left-hand side to try and do anything with. So he decides to be taking a shot from the cushion, which, I mean, ideally he wants to be doing that from two cushions. This is going to be close, by the way. No, it wasn't. To be fair, it was a really good shot there from Chomp. You know, I thought that, you know, the problem for that shot for me is that you need to be catching the red perfectly from underneath. And it's not even diagonal, horizontal, or whatever. You need to be catching that one vertically from behind that red and from the black ball cushion. That's exactly what he's done, because anything but that, you can just try and force the red to be heading closer to the right corner and he'll make the shot a lot more difficult for you. So now Zhao Xington finds that cue ball to be at the top end of the table. So Chomp is going to have a look at those reds to be taken into the right-hand side here. So is he going to try and play a plant into the right corner and, of course, bringing that cue ball to the top end of the table? You know, it's certainly going to have a shot with full of risk there. Well, way too narrow of a line. Is he going to get away with this one? Well, to me, that is about as lucky as you can get from Chomp, because even though he has left a straightforward red, the position of the cue ball is going to be the worst one that you can possibly imagine, and it's going to be all down to if Zhao Xington... Well, to be fair, he has got that brown, which, to be fair to him, I completely forgot about. I mean, to be fair, even with that brown to be over the pocket, it is going to be such a nasty shot for you to be playing. Can he try and take this red into the corner? Avoid a miscue, but ultimately get himself positioned for the brown. It's close, and the red is going to be in here. So, clearly playing for the brown, which Trump was leaving for himself. But I'm not even sure that this is going to be the colour that takes Xington into the ultimate chance of winning the frame, because he's still going to have a long journey of trying to pot the reds after it. He seems to have taken that with a crispy shot out there, but has he taken with too much crisp? Yes, he has. Yes, he has to me, and it's going to be... Well, he's not going to have the brown over the pocket now, because he's about to have an easy red to be taken in with the circumstances, but I feel like it's going to be very difficult for him to try and find himself on position on anything but the black, which... Even if you get the perfect position on the black, it is still going to be such a difficult shot for you to be taking, because a millimeter to the left or the right, but it is positioned absolutely dead straight onto the black ball cushion. You know, he's going to have to try and play from the left-hand side here, but, I mean, taking this red is probably going to be taken for granted there, but anything after that, I would be very surprised if it's not a safety shot that he played, although he finds himself 2-0 up there, but surely way too straight on the black, and, I mean, he needs to power his black in. I know he's all about attacking, but surely this is not worth taking on. But I tell you what, if he takes this one on, and he makes it, boy, is he going to be difficult to catch. Now, way too difficult for you to be taking a black like that. And at the end point, you always get, you know, when a professional takes on a shot, pretty much with loads of confidence, you always feel like, yeah, maybe I'm seeing something wrong here, but I wasn't. It was a huge black for him to be taking on, and he was never going to make that one. Can it be the same here? No. One thing I would say, don't get your... You know, don't get panicky just yet. It's only 2-0, and you feel like Chomp is actually playing some decent snooker at times. He didn't really stand a chance in the second frame. Give him some time, and then he's going to be there to deliver, because, you know, one thing about Chomp, when I say he's going to deliver, I'm not saying he'll win the match, but he's certainly not going to be, you know, an attempt of a whitewash, because look at that red taken brilliantly by Chomp. He's still going to be a real threat to try and turn this match around, and certainly be, you know, one of the players to beat there, because, you know, from his face, you could see that he doesn't care, that he's not been getting those chances. He knows he'll get them eventually, and now he's just taken two really good shots there, about to be positioned for the red into the corner. And, yeah, one thing you can't do with the world number one is write him off, because every single final that he's played, apart from that Selby, which he sort of disappeared into the second session anyway, but it's probably the only thing that can happen against someone like Selby, and he's probably going to be the only man on the tour which you could lose 5 straightforward frames against, despite him playing very much your style of snooker. Saw this video, and where Chinese, John and Mark Williams were having Chinese food together. Yeah, I've seen that one as well. I'm pretty sure they had Hawkins in there alongside them, or may have been a different video there, to be fair, because, you know, the class of 92 is certainly going to be spending loads of time together. Now, what is he going to be here from this shot? Because Chom has absolutely powered that paint into the corner. Is he going to be lined up for the red? It's close. He needs to avoid a touch and ball, push shot. And he needs that red to be reaching the right corner, and he's done that superbly well. So, despite not having the easiest of the positions to work with, look at that brilliant control of the cue ball. Just a little flick towards it, and the red is going to have enough power for it to reach the destination, despite, you know, being on the verge of, always on the verge of a push shot when you've got that cue ball to be so close to the red. In the end, it's going to be the highest break that we've seen there from Judd. Come on, Judd, now to react. Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say about Judd, I will be super impressed if he manages to take it to the intermission with 2 frames each, but if he does, tell me he's not going to be the favourite for the remainder of the match, because that was always going to be the only point where he's the underdog, because he's got a lot more than Xington of a plan B, plan C, plan D for him to try and bring. He's been here before so many times, and let's be honest here, as much as we've been saying that Zhao Xington has had a really good run, he's always been the favourite in those matches there. He's been the favourite against Williams, he was the favourite against Bingtao. Against Bruxelles in the 21, he probably wasn't the favourite before the match, because, you know, he wasn't really in there. When he was playing against Williams, we've seen what he's done to Ronnie, and we've seen how difficult it was for Williams to try and get past Job Trump, so he was always going to take a sting against him. But now, this is probably the first time where Xington is going to approach the final being 50-50 of a match, but he was going to always turn into 60-40 after our first couple of frames, and now it's turn for Judd to try and respond with his own break of 70 plus points. And if he is to do that, time is now, because 32 points of a difference is not really going to cut it for now. So just take this red into the middle. He's played that one superbly well, because, of course, as I say, those ones where you've got the red to be played with a little bit of the angle where you try and drop the cue ball for the black. He still needs to be taken care of. And he's about to have a little bit of a rest for 2 more shots. Playing the black carefully into the corner. About to have the red lines up into the opposite side of the table. Not really going to be expecting for him to be making a mistake on either one of those 2 shots. A little bit surprised though that he's decided to go for pretty straight shot. Although he does have a little bit of the angle. He needs to try and make that cue ball to go around those reds. And still, I suppose it makes sense there for him to be playing those reds into the left middle first. But I was actually thinking he was going to try and force more of the angle on the white. Try and get around all of those reds and play the one closest to the left corner. But something that you can always do a little bit later on. And by taking the red that he has just done, he opened up a couple more of those reds to be taken for him. So once again, nothing else that you would expect. Higher Q there from the world number 1. And now about to be lined up with a frame ball. Just wants to miss the kiss on the red, and he hasn't done that. Wow. The angle was, I'm not even going to say it was narrow. He's played the positional shot really well on the previous occasion, but just a little flick towards the red. And just as he was about to pot the frame ball and take it as the first, I don't know why. Yeah, there you go. 56 points is the advantage with, 59 on the table. The red would have needed Zhao to be finding 2 snookers. For now, it's still going to be very much Tron's fame to lose, but at least Zhao has got the chance of trying to come back. This is close, though, to being a fantastic safety shot, and look at that. This is exactly why we wanted to see the lineup of Zhao against Trump, because despite being super disappointed after not being able to kill the frame away, it is going to be Trump to find the perfect snooker. He certainly has got a bit of an expertise in that aspect after playing pretty much all those snooker shots to try and find Zhao to be in trouble. At the start of the first frame, he's now going to put Xington in the world of trouble here and potentially force the player from China to be conceding the frame within the next couple of shots. If he misses a foul shot and then he leaves an easy one of those 4 reds to be over to Trump, probably one of those 3 reds, because the 4th one is going to be on the right side cushion, which is going to be very difficult for you to leave away. He's going to have a contact with the red, but is he going to finish over the left corner? And he won't, but he still may have left the red to be played into the middle. So the referee now is going to have a look to see there's not going to be a contact in between the cue ball and the red, and there wasn't. So it's not going to be a touching ball, which doesn't really make a difference. Trump, sorry about that. I was sort of, guarding Trump as if to say he won the frame already. Of course, he doesn't need to because there's Xington. So the last thing that Trump wants to be doing is to be taking a risky shot away. I'm still a little bit surprised that he hasn't gone for it, but at the same time, he's only got one of those reds to be safe on the side cushion, and that's probably not enough for you to be, playing 100% of your game against Zhao Xington. Zhao clearly was trying to make 2 of those reds into the open play. He's managed to do it with 1 of them, and he still puts that cue ball to be nicely beyond the bulk line. Xington has good stamina, so flying from China, play right away, was tired, yawning, but he still blew away the man. He was playing, I forgot who he was. I'm pretty sure you're talking about the World Grand Prix and then the Players' Championship. He was Higgins. No, he wasn't Higgins because he was playing in the first round of the World Grand Prix. Was it Selby? Was it Selby that he was playing when he was 4-1 down, still somehow managed to come back? No, it was in the second round. So second round against Selby, the third round was against Wagelin, the 4th one was against Saugeron, the final was against Django. Was he playing in the first round of the Players' Championship? Or was there a first round actually? I may be getting that one completely wrong anyway, but I can't tell you the answer. And for now, it's another great shot there that Trump has played, and he now manages to find himself in, with that cue ball being super close to the right corner. He was never going to drop this one in, to be fair, which leaves Trump to be considering a red to be taken into the left middle again. So it seems like for now, whether it's sort of being done intentionally or not, Zhao is just leaving those little baits around there for Trump, so that if he goes for one of them, he's got a great chance of leaving him out a red away to Zhao, and in the end, take him out with a chance there to, maybe kill the frame off and certainly not make it a repetition of frame number 1. For now, it's going to be Zhao to have a long red available. He still can afford to be losing a couple of those points there, but when I say a couple, I literally mean 2 points that he can lose here, which I'm not sure he makes it worth it. But to be fair, I mean, he probably does make it worth it. I'm a little bit surprised that Zhao Ziton's thinking about going the other way there. I'm about to explain why. But he's going to take this red into the corner and he's going to miss it. So, where's the cue ball going to finish? It's going to finish in a position where that red is probably not going to be playable from Trump because he's going to be heading that cue ball and sending it towards the black, which makes it a risky shot for him to be taking there. Where can I watch live for free? In the alternative universe, you don't really get that on the snooker anymore. It used to be on BBC, but with so many broadcasting channels trying to take control of it, unless it's going to be free in your part of the world, it's certainly not going to be free in the world of the United Kingdom with TNT, WST, and Eurosport not quite, but still all of those channels to be the ones that you have to pay a subscription fee for. And fantastic shot there once again from Trump. Whatever you say about him, his IQ of snooker has clearly been on top of Zhao Ziton purely for him playing more of those difficult shots out there and trying to put Zhao Ziton in a little bit of trouble. And surely it was going to pay off at some point, and now it is about to pay off nicely because this red, despite Zhao having a good contact with it, he's going to drift close to being a mid-range shot there into the left corner, and Trump is going to have this one as a frame ball. He wasn't lined up for the red into the same pocket because of having a minor kiss, but surely he's about to take the third frame away. He hasn't. Wow. This could be a bad miss. This could be a really bad miss if he's left the red to the right corner there to be available for Zhao Ziton. I mean, I'm really surprised that with Trump because he didn't need to be doing anything else. And it doesn't actually seem like he was trying to do anything else. Just didn't manage to pot that red into the corner. The fact that he was a little bit straight. I'm not really going to say that he can use that as an excuse, but for now, Zhao Ziton is probably about to concede the frame because he's going to have 60 of those points to be behind off, and he's spotting the cue ball despite potting the red. So after all of that, it does seem like that mistake from Trump didn't cost him anything, but he still needs to be a little bit better when it comes to getting over the line. But at least, sorry, that was a mistake. Don't worry about it. It's not 3-0 against Trump. It is now going to be 2-1. Still advantage to the world champion of 2025 there, the Cyclone. Zhao Ziton leads Trump by 2 frames to 1. But now it is going to be game on ahead of the 4th frame before the intermission. And is he going to be the world number 1 trying to make it a race to 8 frames? Or is he going to be the world number 4, the newly promoted world champion, which will find himself trying to get ever closer towards those rankings of Neil Robertson? For now, he does find himself 139,000 behind exactly. Both of them going to be on 550 worth of those ranking points, apart from having 1,036,000 for Zhao and 1,175,000 for Neil Robertson. So 139,000 worth of ranking points in between the two of them right now, which means if Zhao was to win, he'd probably be getting within 35,000 worth of ranking points within that 3rd place of the rankings. But with the world champion coming up shortly, yes, Robertson doesn't have loads of those ranking points to defend, but I'll tell you, the man that will have those ranking points to defend, Karen Wilson, had a really quiet season based on those ranking points, with the only 2 really good wins that he had coming in the invitational events of the Shanghai and the Masters. So it's going to be down to all this for you to be seeing. Yes, I think it will Selby. I think Ziton will win as he's got great records in finals, and if Trump is not right, he will struggle badly. He has kind of nursed his way through to the final. There was some good luck, I'd rather say, than playing well as Neil was off form. Yeah, but you can't really put that down to, because it seems like if you're going to be putting it like that, then you can't win. He's got a difficult match against Thullen, which you feel like, he's finished. You can't beat the player that has been struggling the whole tournament. Then he's got probably the most consistent player of the whole season out there. Maybe number 2, if Trump is able to win this tournament for Murphy, and he takes it to the decider. He wins that one for the first time in the season, and then he's played really well on some of those occasions. I'm not going to say he's played, flawless 37 frames, but he's had really good performances in those 2 matches, especially against Murphy. And when he's got a performance like that against Robertson, where he dominates and makes him, behave a little bit weirdly at times and celebrating 4 foul points in the 4th frame, trying to give himself the biggest celebration of the season, whether it was sarcastic or not, after he wins the first frame of the frame number 7. It just feels like he can't win in those circumstances, you know. He's had a really close match, washed. He's had a really close match against Murphy, or at last he won a decider. Then he dominates the match against Robertson on, well, Neil was off form, so it doesn't really make any credit to him. You need to be giving credit to the party that wins the match. And now he still finds himself only 1 frame away from Zhao Xington here to try and take it. And by the way, as I say, I'm only saying Zhao will win because he was always going to be my favourite for the first 3 or 4 frames. Starting from that point, it's going to be 52% for Trump, 48% for Zhao Xington from me. So I said Xington could be winning the first session 6-2 or 5-3. I went for 6-2. If Trump is able to get himself even 5-3 of a difference, it's going to be tough, but he's going to be capable of trying to come back in the second session. But we'll have to wait and see for now. After the break-off shot from Zhao Xington, Trump, is he going to go for this red into the corner? He needs to be taking those shots, and he needs to be making them on at least a couple of those occasions. He didn't make this red in, and has he managed to use the black as a cover point? The same red is going to drift towards the right corner, but it does seem like he's going to be staying super close to the black now. I think Xington is most likely to get the number 1 from Judd. Ronnie was last one that did for a short time 2 years ago. Yes. Well, it's obvious, really, because, you know, even from the maths point of view, if you talk about from the snooker point of view, then you need a doubles like that. It was really close, by the way, from Zhao to be taking a double, which would have been a risk-free shot for him into the left middle. The only red that he could have left was the one that he was playing, and still getting lined up perfectly on the black. Didn't manage to take that double in, but still, a really nice shot there that he's taken. And now it's going to be a red. Can Trump take this red away? And can he get past the black? Yes, he can. Brilliant shot there from Judd. Fantastic find there that he gets into the right middle. And now, the first blood in the 4th frame is going to be in favour of Trump, but still needs to take care of business here on the black. And surely he's going to try and send that cue ball on a journey. And I said he needed to take business on the black. Now is he going to get a little bit of luck on the cue ball? He won't, but he'll put the black to be completely out of position. So, calamity of the cue ball and the black to be meeting each other at the yellow pocket out there, after having the black and the cue ball to be missing their contact points. Of course, trying to pot the black into the corner, but not having a good contact with those reds from the cue ball either. Is it going to be a long red now for Xington that he takes? And the question that really wasn't worth answering for, because you felt the answer was in the air. Brilliant shot there once again from Zhao. But he's going to have a difficult journey to the finish line here. The black out of position, not really a way for you to try and travel towards the top end of the table without having any one of those reds to be anywhere near the middle point of the table, let alone the top part of it. So he's going to have to try and do it with the blue for now. The pink is nowhere to be seen, and he's got those reds to be positioned around the pink in a way where it's going to be really difficult for you to try and get lined up on the pink here. So carefully takes the red into the left corner. Yeah, I forgot he beat Murphy. That was better, but maybe lucky as Murphy went for double and left the sitter for Judd or Bean out there. Well, yeah, but once again, like, he wasn't doing that for every single one of those frames. And it's a really good shot there from Xington, but is he going to have any sort of luck? For now, it doesn't seem like it. And he was the shot that would have freed up the pink, and at least into the left middle, but, you know, it's better to have the pink to be potable into one of those pockets than not to have it to be possible at all. Now it is going to be 12 points on the break for Zhao Xington, but he's got the left corner and the right corner to be blocked off in a very similar fashion, and he's not going to have any one of those reds into the middle. So it does seem like, despite a really good contact made with the pink and the reds from the blue, he's going to have to try and play a safety shot, which, you know, easier said than done. The shot from the right side is going to be the easiest option that springs to mind, but he's going to have to try and play that with, you know, bridging over the reds. So that leaves you with having to, you know, cover up the options that he got available for himself to try and take those reds away. Of course, he's not able to, you know, see through those reds, but if he was, he certainly would be in with a decent opportunity to try and take this break away from Chom. Now, has he managed to play this one close enough to the corner? I tell you what, to me, he hasn't done so. And it's a bad shot there from Zhao. It's always horrible for you to be playing a shot like that, because you do have so many of those reds to be on open play. You're not on any one of them, and that means the same open reds could be available for your opponents as soon as you step away from the table. Trump, though, needs to try and take this red away into the corner. He's done that in the previous frame. He's not going to miss this one either, but is he going to have a shot for the blue? Because he's not going to have a chance to repeat. Well, I'll tell you what, this is now a shot to stay in the frame. I'm not going to say if he makes the blue into the yellow pocket, he'll win the frame, but if he doesn't, I feel like that blue is going to go anywhere right now. Xington will have one of those reds to be at the top end of the table, which potentially could be used to bring the black into the play. Now, can he try and get the blue in? It's a shot that you would expect him to make, but he hasn't playing his best snooker so far, and he hasn't got the blue. Trying to power that cue ball through the shot, and, well, it doesn't seem like it's worked out for him at all. So, once again, just a single point there scored by Judd. He was a decent long red into the corner, but you would always fancied him to be taking that red away. Now it's going to be down to Zhao, which, to be fair, away to Trump, I mean, is the pink going to be available into the right corner? Because that is going to certainly bring, his chances to coming back to the frame purely based off a pot success mistake from Zhao, because he's going to have so many of those reds in the open play. And if he gets the pink to be available, has he missed this one though? Wow, the pink was available, but he was also missed. This is a mistake that we haven't seen at all from Zhao until the end point of his match against John Higgins. Trump is certainly going to be having the best Easter, present for himself in the fourth frame here already, because that was a horrible miss there from Zhao. He wasn't even trying to use that red to keep it until late, so that he was going to have a chance to try and bring the black into play, which probably wouldn't have made too much of a difference anyway, if he had the pink to be available. But now, this is going to turn the frame on his head, because Trump has got an easy introduction into the corner. He's going to have the blue and the pink to be right next to the cue ball. He's overplayed for the pink, which means that he probably wasn't playing for it anyway. With how focused he seems to be, just try and keep that rest on the table and make sure he's about to take another red into the left part of the table here. So just walking his way to be seeing that the situation with those reds to be taken into the right part of the table. I think he's a bit burning out after yesterday's play, John. Goes, but I mean, is this his first time to be playing in the final after the semi-final? He's only played 11 frames against John. He was about as relaxed as he can be in terms of pressure. And, he clearly didn't turn up with the same mentality in the second session there. Although, I mean, it's probably a little bit harsh to be saying that, because we've only seen 3 frames of the action there ever since the 8-0 win that he had. But he could have just turned up, with the wrong cue there, and he still would have fancied his chance to try and get 2 out of those remaining 9 frames and take that match to be heading his direction. For now, Trump is always going to have the first starting point to this frame as the most difficult one, as once again we can see. I feel like he could have, done himself a little bit more of a favour of bringing the cue ball closer to the pink in the first time, but then, of course, even with the cut that he had, he should have been making this pink end. And now Trump is going to have to be playing for the blue. Clearly didn't fancy to try and play for the pink here. And he may keep that one in the pocket for as long as he wants, but inevitably it will come in as a problem for him to try and be putting reds into that part of the table. As now Trump has a little bit of a look to see what's the situation going to be with those reds to be taken into the left part of the table. And the situation is, it's easy for you to take the reds in, but it's a lot more difficult for you to try and take those reds in with the right angle and try and position that cue ball to be lined up for the blue. Different story if you play for the pink though, because the pink is still going to return back on its spot, and as we've seen with Zhao's previous shot, it's going to be available to be heading into the left middle and the right corner. But ideally, of course, Trump would have liked to clear every single one of those reds next to the pink spot to make sure he's got the pink to be accessed into 4 of those main pockets at the lower end of the table. For now, once again, he needs to miss the contact on this red. And, the pink is going to return in his spot. And Trump, he's better be praying that he can get through to this red next to the pink. Because if he can't, he's going to have exactly the same mistake as he made in the previous frame. But this time around, he's not going to have the points to be taken into consideration. Well, it seemed like he's going to be way too close, but as I say, just didn't need to be closing in the angle there. The cue ball was always heading towards the contact with those 2 reds, and in the end, as he had the contact, he drifted away from them with a little bit more of the power. This is going to be risky. And yeah, you can see he was doing the backswing, but he wasn't ready, and he realized that that was going to be way too close. And unfortunately for Trump, that means the end of a break. A horrible way to end it, and a really cheap mistake there to be given away. He may still try and hold on to either one of those two reds, but it seemed like he's got no chance of trying to get through them. Otherwise, the shot would have been taken already. And very few pressure viewing the score, and the match on the night session was very short, so he could rest easy. Yeah, as I say, exactly. Like, you know, once again, the points are not accumulating, whatever it was. Don't know why, but it is 17 points there from Chomp, and 13 of those from Zhao. Apologies, he's got 4 more next to his name. There we go. So he leads by 21 points to 13 in favour of Trump, but ultimately, you know, anything that wasn't a frame win after the previous break was going to be a disappointing result. And now he finds himself with pretty much, you know, a 6-red Tour Championship here, as you might call this particular frame, because it's, as much as it's going to be 7 reds available, it's now 8 points in between the players, 91 at the table, and either one of those players there. I'm not going to say if they get the first chance, they'll win the frame, but you know, it probably should be down to this, especially if it's John, because he'll need only 6 of those 7 reds to be taken, and then he won't need the last one. And, 6 reds to be taken, and then he won't need the 7th one. He's played a really nice shot there, and that was a fantastic shot played by Chomp, which as long as he hasn't got the blue to be covering those reds, and you can see that, to be fair, Zhao clearly has been playing this game for a long time, because the cue ball was still nowhere near to be stopping, and he was already apologising for snookering Chomp in behind the blue. That could have been the chance for Jug to try and take this one away. In the end, once again, doesn't want to have that touch. Seems to be alright with this occasion. I mean, he was playing for another red, and he caught the red that was getting in the way of the shot from the side cushion, but with that cue ball heading towards the black ball cushion anyway, and being right next to the reds, he wasn't given an easy chance away here. I know he can rest, but he takes out mentally more, so Jed could sit and relax. You see, we're day off. Yeah, but once again, we haven't really seen that in the first 2 frames there. You know, for me, when you have a very difficult performance like that, either you're going to see it right at the end of a match, which I feel like it could be relevant to Chom, because he's played a lot more frames than Xington. He's played 1 more match, and also he's had you know, yes, he had a 10-4 win against Robertson, but, you know, you could put that down to, you know, a 10-4 win against Wakelin there for Zhao, and then 10-8 against Allen, 10-9 against Murphy. It's surely not going to be equivalent towards playing a 10-1 win against Higgins. So Trump is certainly going to be more tired there than Zhao, and he's about to find himself to be playing exactly the same mistake that Zhao Xington has made, but this time around, he's not going to have the blue that helped on Zhao on the previous occasion. He's about to leave a red to the right corner. What can Xington do here? Because the blue is now out of position. The pink is going to be very complicated for you to try and take every single one of those reds from. And he's missed the red. Wow. Certainly didn't expect that to be the case. And is he going to leave the red over the left corner? Yeah, for Trump, it's a different scenario, though, because he's about to have 2 reds over the corner. But also, I mean, is he going to be straight in this red, though? He can just about get through to it, and it does look like, yeah, surely he's going to have to try and play for the pink. You know, loads of backswing, make sure that he's got that cue ball to be heading towards the pink. Last thing that he wants is to try and put a little bit of pressure on himself. And, well, he's played that with a different mindset. He seems to be alright now. I was a little bit skeptical because of the low pace on the cue ball, but it seems like he's just about had enough in so that he's going to have a position on there. Pink to be taken into the corner. So just carefully take this pink away. Make sure that he gets that power on the cue ball to be a minimal one. And he's about to be having to have a red to be played into the corner. And yeah, he's going to be nicely lined up on the pink, because he's about to take probably the biggest issues there in relation to those reds. Now just having a plan to be taken. I look at into the corner. 16 points being the difference. What's he going to be here when it comes to those, you know, those reds that he needs? He's got 67 points at the table. He only has got 16 points of advantage right now. Make that 22 as he takes the pink away, and he stays in that position for a long, long time, which is not, you know, something that we see very often from Chom. Usually he's one of those players that tries to play a shot, and then he's going to be up on the position that he's taken very quickly out there. Now just carefully positioning that cue ball to be lined up for the pink. Playing that with loads of power, and he seems like he's managed to bring that distance in between the cue ball and the pink to an absolute minimum. So just having a bit of a look to see on what he's going to be able to do with a plant to be taken towards the right corner, surely, because if he gets that one in, he should be lined up for the plant, and he clearly played for that plant. So what's he going to be here now? Because, of course, the good thing about this shot is if he pots the first red, the second one inevitably will finish up to be in open space. And, 43 points on the table is going to be after those two reds disappear. And you feel like if those remaining two reds are going to be taken with a pink, then Watchalong should be lined up with 2-0 draw. And I tell you what, this is going to be a huge step forward towards him, because exactly as he was in the Champion of Champions, Zhao took the first 2 frames, and then Trump responded with taking 6 of those on the bounce. I'm not saying he's going to do that here, but it seems like he's certainly able to try and do the damage limitation in the first mini session, and to try and do a little bit of damage of his own into the session number 2. For now, it's going to be 37 points of the advantage, so he will be positioned with 43 points. So I've done my maths a little bit wrong there, which I don't really know how that one worked out, because I had him with 46 or 45 points clear. Anyway, 43 points clear, 43 remaining. So now it's going to be a red that he has got the cue ball to be positioned slightly wider off, because he needs to have the position that he can actually try and pot the red from. But in the end, all of that is not going to matter, and we're about to see 4 frames to be finished with a break of 60 plus to be made in every single one of them. The breaks of 61 and 68 from Zhao, the breaks of 61 and 42 out there. I was looking at the points as if it were the points that Trump scored in every single one of those frames. But in the end, he still has got a chance to do that if he makes a total clearance or gets somewhat close to it. For now, it's still going to be very much over to you, Zhao, because he's played some really good frame out there, especially in the second one, where he was able to put that safety struggle behind him. Trump wasn't really able to respond, but look at that response. As long as the cue ball doesn't get too close to the yellow, and he has got a little bit too close to the yellow, so yeah, he's not going to be able to cut this one in. And not a good attempt there from Trump, but it's not going to make the finish line. And in the end, it is going to be the 4-frame intermission there. Zhao and Trump will make their way for a deserved break for every single one of them. And now it's going to be all the way down for a break of 50 there for Trump, as he now makes his way to 2 frames each out there. Zhao managed to win the first 2 with a really good safety battle to finish the first one. Had a really good break of 68 points to make a little bit easier work for himself at the frame number 2. But at the end point, he's now managed to have 2 frames lost there as well, as Trump is the one that responds, and he's going to put himself in a race first away there. Fantastic lineup, and for now, a fantastic scoreline to be carrying into the second mini session as well. By the way, thank you for everyone tuning into the channel. Feel free to like on the stream and subscribe to the channel as well. We are going to have the second session, which doesn't really need any promotion out there. It's going to speak for itself with the result, because the worst case scenario from the neutral's point of view is going to be either one of those 2 players having 6-2 frames of a lead. But as you've seen with the previous 4 frames, anyone could be taking a frame away, and right now is going to be positioned pretty nicely with, the first session potentially to be taken all the way. It's still possible for Trump to have the exact repetition of the Champions of Champions scoreline and to make it 6 frames on the bounce. But for now, it is going to be a little bit of, analysis to be done. Where has he gone slightly wrong for Zhao, and why was he happy to try and concede the initiative over to Trump? Because if you analyse the way that the first frame has gone, it's going to be 73 points to 34. Very different story in the second one. But let's start with the first. It seemed like that break of 64 points kills the frame entirely, and then you feel like, the red that he's taken into the left middle, feel like surely he's going to be the first century of the match at the first visit to the table, and then he misses that red, which later on he's gone on to miss again into the same pocket, into the same frame there. So those were the 2 opportunities for him to try and kill the frame earlier on. Then Trump comes back to the table needing 3 snookers, and manages to start pretty well with, having the first couple of those reds to be potted, with expensive colours, and brings that points tally to the maximum that he can. He finds himself with something like, 50 points behind whilst needing 3 snookers, finds 2 of those snookers, fights back for the third one with a really long safety battle, despite every single one of those foul shots to be super close there for Zhao. As he takes the third one away, you feel like that was probably the closest that he was to winning that frame away, because I'm pretty sure he had that red available to be taken into the right part of the table. He decided not to be doing that, and in the end, it clearly was down to that miss and, not playing enough of a safety shot behind it so that Zhao was able to find a fantastic snooker lined up in behind the green. Trump wasn't able to find himself escaping that snooker, so he gave 4 foul points away straight away, but ultimately he's left that red to be taken into the corner, and that was the end of a frame. Despite having such a comfortable break of 64 points, it wasn't quite as comfortable at the end. So let's have a very quick look. Apologies, got that one completely wrong, and there you go. It's going to be a break of 49 points from Trump, so it doesn't really matter. So it's still going to be 2 frames each, but just looking at the official points tally there on the WSD, when it comes to the second frame, I actually thought, we've seen a couple of those long reds to be missed at the end point of the first frame, and you feel like potentially that's going to be the thing to slightly, unravel Zhao, and then he comes away with a break that probably was about as good as the one in the first frame. Trump didn't have any sort of response, and that was the first and the only frame so far that was won by a scoreline to 0. 92 points to the end, and a break of 68 points, the highest one of the match so far. And then you feel like, well, we've seen this story before. They're the champion of champions, so as I say, whatever you do, make sure you don't write Trump off too early, because at least give him a chance to try and prove you wrong and then do whatever you want in the second mini session. Now, he's managed to do exactly that, having a break of 61 points. It was a little bit unsteady for him at the starting point of the frame, but at the end of it, only 6 points scored for Zhao, and a really nice break there of 61 points, which wasn't easy for Trump, especially after spending so much time sat in his seat, and, the rest of his table time that he had dedicated to himself was probably taken onto those safety shots anyway. So then he puts himself on the score sheet, which is important, as if you look at the match in between Trump Robertson, especially the one that we've seen against yesterday evening of John Higgins against Zhao, and then it's always going to be down to, is he going to be a 3-1 lead and still great advantage to Zhao, or is Trump going to be able to find himself probably being the favourite again and try and take this one to be heading all the way towards the, a potential 17, 18, or even a 19 frames of a thriller. Then the response was there in the 4th frame very quickly and really nicely there that Trump has managed to have a break of 49 points at the end. He hasn't managed to do it with the first attempt. It was a very disappointing kiss that he had in the 3rd frame as well, but at that point, I feel like he was getting the frame to be won already, so it didn't really matter. In the 4th frame, it looked like he was going to be a little bit of that, a cheap mistake, an unforced error to be made, and Zhao was going to be coming back to the table, but once again, wasn't able to exploit his long shot game to the level that we've seen in the first couple of frames, and then he left Trump with a good chance of scoring 49 points, with Trump taking that opportunity every day of the week and winning the frame by 70 points to 13. So it still does look like this session has got a chance to try and take it all the way there, because if you compare those matches with ranking finals there of Trump, let's start with Judd first, because he's had more of those so far, and let's start with the one at the German Masters. The first session was won by Trump, well, quite comfortably at the end. It was a 5-3 of a win, but at the end point, he probably was down to him winning 4 more frames at the start of the second session as well, and then he was down to 9-3 of a gap, where Murphy was able to win only 1 more of those frames and find himself with a really good chance to try and take it down to 10 frames for 4 of a loss. Down to, if you move down to the Northern Ireland Open where he had against Jack, I don't even have to search that one up, because I remember that every single one of those times where either Jack or, in majority of those cases, or sometimes Judd were ahead, there wasn't a point in the match unless there was one at 8-6 or something like that, where there was more than a frame deficit there in favor of one of those two. It was an incredibly close match, probably the closest of the entire season, when you talk about, you know, how little there was to separate the two players. And yeah, the only point, yeah, there wasn't a point out there. It was always going to be a frame advantage away to Jack. Then he was, no, exactly Trump. So I got that one a little bit wrong. I don't know why I thought Jack was the one getting the edge on Trump all the time. He's managed to do that at the end, with Chum leading 2-1, 3-2, 4-3, 5-4, 6-5, 6-7. And then he was down to 8-7. And then, of course, 9-8 of a win for Jack. So those two finals are the ones that you can bring up. Then the UK Championship against Selby, you feel like that was the one where he lost after the first 5 frames, because as much as he managed to make a game out of it, 5-0 down, horrible performance in the first 5 frames, able to bring it down to 5-2, absolutely must win off of frame number 8. He loses that one, he loses frame number 9, and then he's gone on a little bit of a run, which didn't really prove to be enough out there. 5-7 down, which is better than 2-7, but still allowing Selby to be edging out in front and swapping 5-7 for 7-9, able to win one more frame, 8-9, and then Selby was, at the second time of asking, able to get over the line with a win of 10 frames to 8. And then, of course, another final of the season for Judd Trump is going to be the one that he has played at the Champion of Champions, and that one was against Selby again. It was right before the performance of the UK Championship, and that was the exact opposite of what we've seen in the UK, because, you know, Trump had a 3-1 of a lead. He's then gone to lose 4 frames of the bounce, so to lose out the first session 5 frames to 3. Then he's won 2 frames against Selby, managed to bring that one to 5 frames each, so we feel like brilliant. We're set up for a potential, sorry about that, a potential 9-frame thriller. Then he loses 5 frames of the bounce, and this is the way the match got over. So 5 frames each, and then it's going to be 5 frames to 10. So yeah, this is the story of Trump, and the story of, you know, Zhao is going to be a little bit simpler than that, because if you talk about the Players' Championship campaign against John Higgins, well, you know, certainly what's different to what we've seen in the finals of Trump, because you've actually seen Higgins to be the one leading the pack for the majority of those occasions. You know, the only point until the 15th frame where Zhao was in the lead was 4 frames to 3 there. Apart from that, 2-0 lead, 3-2, 5-4, 6-5, 7-6, all to be in favour of John Higgins, where he was able to take the match to the wire, but you always felt like he was down to Zhao not playing his best game until the end. And then, of course, he goes on a fantastic run, grinds out the frame number 14, and then makes it a fantastic 3. I'm not sure if this was the match where he made 3 centuries on the bounce, and makes it 7-6 over the deficit there, and it turns it in his favour to 10 frames to 7. Exactly something that we've seen Ronnie O'Sullivan to lose against Chip China at the World Open as well. Both of these players in the future might go down as great world champions, obviously after winning 3 or 2 times. Happy Easter, guys. Legendary chat there, Paul. Lovely message all around. And yeah, ultimately, I'm pretty sure I've seen that interview of Sean where he's saying he's not going to be able to win 4 or 5, then he's going to be disappointed, which, you know, he's clearly got a really good chance of doing that. But it does seem like, you know, he's going to have those legends of the class of 92, the likes of Selby, Murphy, to be in there. Wilson and Zington are going to be from a newer generation, the younger generation. And then, of course, you're going to have the absolute legends of the game of Mark Williams, John Higgins, and Ronnie O'Sullivan still being in there with a charge. And then, you know, you always can see the exact story of Zhao Zington, but potentially someone like Luca Brissell. I'm not going to compare the two of them, because Luca was still very much the world number. Well, he was in the top 16 there, as far as I'm aware, before his performance at the World Championship. Although he might have been only just in it, though. So I'm not too sure about that. I know he was the world number 10 when he reached the semi-final. But, yeah, I'm not too sure if he was. But anyway, it doesn't matter. But we've seen those stories of the underdogs to be doing those. And Zhao Zington certainly competing at an amateur status. You felt like it was always going to be down to, well, a potential chance for him to try and make it all the way. We'll have to wait and see on the way that this is going to go for now. Zhao Zington finds himself in a position here. Talk about this match again. We are going to talk about his performance. Well, may as well do that now. Talked about the Tour Championship, so just finish up with the World Grand Prix. And then it's going to be down to... what's the... Of course, China Grand Prix is not going to be the thing that we need, so it's going to be in the World classification. So, yeah, had a really good run, and the further he was getting himself through, the better that he was playing there against Zhao especially. Able to take the match all the way, winning 3 frames at the end, and of course he managed to win the match 10 frames to 6 there. I thought he won that one 10 frames to 6, but anyway, he had a 7-6 of a lead there, and I actually remember that Zhang Anda had a really good chance to try and make it 7 frames each at frame number 14, but at that point it was no comeback on this occasion, and it was Zhao Xingtong to make that match to go all the way in his favour. The only point where Zhang was leading was by 3 frames to 2, and then he's had the leads of 2-1, 3-4, 6-4 of Xingtong, before he was able to take it to a 2-frame cushion, which he's managed to keep until the end and turn it into 10 frames to 6 at the end. So, yeah, it's now going to be down to, back to this match, a little bit more pressure on Zhao Xingtong, because I can actually see him being the favourite in terms of the odds, but I mean, I'm not sure I would actually say that he's the favourite to me, because I mean, maybe a little bit of a, arrogant thing to say, but from what we've seen so far in this season in general, but when you put him under pressure and you've got the match of his technique, it does seem like he's not going to be quite as comfortable as the performance of John Higgins and Zhang Anda, because remember, both of them have not been playing their best snooker in the second session. I'm not saying that, Trump got a wild card where he's got written in his contract where he gets unlimited power boost and he gets his techniques to be perfect at the second session, although that would be nice to have as a perk bonus as the world number 1. But ultimately, if he manages to bring his A game down towards the end of the match, I mean, I don't see a reason why he would not be the favourite. So, yeah, I would have this one as a 50-50, and if I would have to guess on who's going to be the winner from here, then we'll probably give the edge to Trump, simply because he's been here before, and that fantastic start of having 5 ranking final wins against 5 is brilliant. But as I say, if you break it down, the UK Championship against Bruxelles was the underdog story, but Bruxelles is the type of a player that it can go really well or really bad for him, and on that day he wasn't playing anywhere near his best snooker. The one with Bingtao, I'm not even sure I should mention that one, because it was, a night against a day of worth of playing. A horrible performance from Bingtao, and 9-0 of a loss. Then if you talk about Mark Williams, then he nearly beat him with the session to spare. Yes, he managed to win 5 frames on the bounce or something like that to make it 18-12, but at the end point, it wasn't really close enough, was it, to make a match out of it. You talk about John Higgins, you talk about Zhang Anda, were they really in the comfortable place against Zhao Xingtong? You could probably make a case about Higgins, because he was winning his match 7 frames to 6, but even in that case, you probably would have given the edge to Zhao Xingtong, and it's exactly what happened. Now, we're about to welcome the players back to the arena, and let's see which one of them will step up a little bit more and try and have the performance that they will remember until the end of their career, because it doesn't get any better than that from the lineup. And let's see, does it get any better than that from the performance point of view? Zhao Xingtong and Judd Trump are going to be level on points, and they're certainly going to be level as they walk away backwards onto the arena. Let's see which way is he going to go. Is it going to be the story to be written for Trump? Can he try and keep that momentum going from 2 frames that he's won on the bounce, try and take it 3 or 4 there, in the best case scenario, you can try and take it all the way and win 6 frames in the bounce. As I say, he's done that at the champions out there. For now, he's got a break-off shot, as he is going to be, once again, odd frame, as he was the one starting in frame number 1. Zhao Xingtong still seems like he's not able to find those long reds after any of those previous 3 break-off shots, which is going to be a great tick in the box there for Judd Trump. Doesn't look good there in relation to contact to the brown, and the cue ball takes a little bit of the pace away after having a contact with the brown, but to be fair, with the black to be covered up by those reds from the right-hand side, I feel like this is not really going to be too far out. Not too sure there what the comments of for the Trump to be. Oh, so they're saying there's a little bit too smoke at the table there. So Trump is just asking to have a little bit of a pause. Of course, they do those special effects when they welcome the players back onto the arena. But to be honest with you, I don't really understand why they would do that anyway, because it doesn't get seen on the TV, and I feel like that's probably the last thing that people in the audience need, because they're already there. And I tell you what, the crowd in Manchester, probably one of the few crowds in the world snooker that don't need to have an extra thing to be excited about, especially when they've got the world number one against the reigning champion to be in play. Anyway, the smoke seems like it's gone, but remember, there's no smoke without fire, and the fire may be here if Trump is able to get the red in, and he wasn't. The fire is going to get here anyway, or is it? Wow, surely he hasn't left all of those reds to be covered up there for Zhao, because he's got the cue ball to be right in the mix of those reds, and despite being so close to be potting the first red of the frame, you know, it seemed like it's going to have to be a really difficult red to be taken into the right corner or the right middle. Apart from that, Zhao probably won't have anything else for him to try and get on the score sheet. John was tired. I found him very resistant to the pressure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure which one you're talking about, to be fair. But if you talk about John or Zhao, then you know, there certainly have been players that have been brilliant when it comes to trying to, you know, maintain that cool head. And well, he's surely not taking the shred away into the corner. And look at that for a shot, brilliant. But surely he's way too far there in relation to the black, or is he? It's going to be close. It's going to be very close. Or is it actually going to be close there? Or is he comfortably on the black to be taken into the corner? And it does seem like he can see the way through those reds. So, for now, he's able to have some sort of response there with, you know, having a couple of those quiet frames where he was only able to score 19 points at the end of those two. Now, can he try and go for a little bit of a run here and try and make it past the benchmark of probably, well, I'm not even sure if 40 points is going to be enough based on the position that he's got available, because he's going to have so many of those reds to try and exploit here. 6 more to say the least, and that leaves you with 16 more points that he's about to score of the first 2 reds and black combinations. So this could be one of those frames there that will repeat the history of the second frame and make it a 1-0. Because sometimes that mistake from Trump on the long red is going to be enough to try and put him out of contention for the remainder of the frame. So, of course, this is always going to be the risks. I'm not going to say it's going to be the positive or the negative thing, because it's just one of those things that you're always going to see there with Trump and Xington. Whenever one of them gets the chance, then he's going to be down to the other to try and wait for a mistake. But whenever that mistake comes, you need to be making sure you've got the position ahead of you. Now, you've got the score to match. You know what it takes for you to win the frame, and now you've got that very much, you know, scarred in your face. Just concentrate and try and bring that cue ball to be positioned perfectly for every single one of those shots that you take, and then find yourself with 75 points plus of a break, which will surely get you over the line, and make sure it is going to be down to the next frame for your opponent or yourself to try and take away. For now, it's going to be a rest shot there, which was taken pretty nicely there by Zhao, but wouldn't like to be slightly on the upper side of a blue. Either wants to have, or the black, I should say. Either wants to be straight in this one so that he can try and make it past the red on the right side of the table. And I thought he was going to try and play for the red into the left middle, but with his body language clearly suggested that he was trying to keep the red at the left middle. So at the right corner, I should say. But in the end, with him overrunning for that one, he's bound to play a red into the left middle anyway. So tries to stay on the black here, which, you know, we may have to come back later on, because he doesn't have any more of those reds to be on the cushion. So it could still be a bit of an attempt like that, although, just as I mentioned, the maximum, you know, it seemed like it played a really bad shot there in terms of barely got that black to be missing enough of a front jaw for it not to be dropping in. But at the same time, unless he powered his way off the cue ball towards this red, well, it was coming. And I could see this coming there, and I'm very surprised that I'm seeing this earlier on there from Zhao, but he doesn't look like he's as comfortable as he has been throughout this tournament, and this could be a really worrying sign there for him, because even though that was the case, he clearly didn't, you know, he didn't take the warning signs, and he was still trying to stay on the black clearly for that 147 to be still on there, but the problem is Trump is about to be taking the reds into the corner, and you can see there with his body language, he was desperately trying to use all that power without touching the cue ball for it to be remaining at the table. But, you know, it got the difficult red in. But, yeah, could this be the beginning of the end there of Zhao to have the upper hand on this title, and potentially the return of the world number one to be the favourite here once again? Because as I said, after having those previous 2 frames that he's won, I did expect a little bit more from his chance creation so far. It's been down to taking those long raids on probably 50% of accuracy, and when he has done that, it still seems like he's found himself in a bit of a spot of bother in relation to having those long raids to be converted to something. Although this is a brilliant shot there. I mean, surely he's not going to have both raids covered up there. I'm not saying that I can see anything that would make me feel like that, but it seems like he's going to be very close to that cue ball in relation to the raid to the right middle. But at the same time, the raid into the corner certainly goes, and it's going to be down to the control of the cue ball, where he can try and get out of it. In the end, it was always going to be easier for Trump to try and take the raid towards the right middle, which was exactly what he's done. And paying spectators already get their money's worth, closing counters unlike yesterday. Yeah. But now, he's certainly, very few, well, I'm not going to say very few, but not all of them, of course, are going to be lined up for the all-day admission. But, of course, the ones that are do seem like they're going to be set up for a fantastic blockbuster of a final. This is exactly what we wanted there, because this is when you're sort of ready to say, well, we're fine for the semi-finals to be one-sided, as long as we see great quality, or whatever, makes you feel happy about the snooker that you see on the TV or at the arena. But it was down to seeing a final which is going to have something that we were missing for some of those matches of the Tour Championship, and that, of course, is drama. And drama, well, and snooker without drama is sometimes an incomplete package. Whatever it was, we're certainly getting the money worth of it now, because even though Zhao was looking to try and stay on all reds and blacks after having 5 of those reds to be done, and spotting the 5 blacks after it, the red that he was taking to the middle, after having those, as I say, warning signs ignored, certainly didn't work out. He's left the same red to be on the little black, and Trump, ever since that point, has scored 21 points. It was awful yesterday. I wouldn't say it was awful. I mean, I can understand spectators getting their money worth of tickets, getting the tickets worth of money, I should say, but I mean, it wasn't really awful to be watching from the TV, as it was a little bit disappointing that we didn't get so much of the table time, but Trump clearly felt like he didn't have any chance to try and send the cue ball into the reds, so he had to be playing for a very tight channel, and it seems like he's only just about going to be lined up for this red. But I'll tell you what, it's a bold move to be playing a shot like this, because, he's about as perfect as he could have been, and he still has got a difficult line to probably not taking the red home, but being lined up for the black, unless there's going to be a corridor on the left of those reds that he can try and get past the cue ball off. And that red was following the cue ball to go all the way towards the blue. Is he going to be on the blue? And it seems like he's going to be just about happy there. There's no throwing arms around the table, which probably suggests that he's going to be lined up nicely for the blue to be carefully rolled into the right middle. Back home, they paid for less than 45 minutes of experience. Yeah. What I mean is, like, as I say, it was super disappointing for whoever managed to turn up to the arena. I mean, like, more of a snooker quality. It's a horrible shot by Trump. Whatever he was trying to do there, when he was looking for a contact on one of those reds, or just misjudged the power, it was one of the easiest reds that he was about to take. Surely, the last shot that he had to play was difficult, was the one that trying to get that cue ball out of the captivity of those reds, and still, 2 shots later, despite having a decent blue to be played, takes a really easy red, and now he's going to be nowhere near to be lined up for the black or pink. Looks at the scoreboard, 5 points behind he is, 59 to the table, 4 reds to be in open play. Both of the players will need every single one of those reds. And then Trump will still probably need the yellow and potentially green to be taken with it. Zhao, of course, won't, unless he's got Trump to be scoring more points here. But you feel like he doesn't really have a reason to be doing anything here, apart from, he can't even put the colour safe because he's finding himself 5 points behind there. So, yeah, probably putting one of those reds to go onto the side cushion or something like that. Wouldn't really make sense either, to be fair, for the same reason. So just try and play it with the yellow or blue to be used, because you probably can't see enough of the green or brown. No, the pink can also be used, to be fair, because you don't need the pink for either one of the players. Trump doesn't need that one either, and you sort of can just try and roll that pink towards the right side. If he gets that cue ball to be heading into the line where he wants, then it's certainly going to work. But he's had, as I said, yeah, that was certainly horrible for, the fans to be seeing. But unfortunately, it's part of snooker. And you certainly can't fault Zhao for doing that. Can't really fault for John Higgins because you always know that he's going to try and perform at his best. But it's safe to say that yesterday wasn't one of those incredible performances that he was going to show to the fans and all around the globe, but also the ones watching at the Manchester. So once again, Zhao is going to be coming back to the table after such a lengthy thinking time there from Trump. Surely he's not going to be able to embarrass him a little bit and try and take a long red away. I'll tell you what, he'll do you one better. He's probably about to have Trump lined up with a snooker. He will be close. He will be very close in relation to the red to be taken into the right-hand side of it, but it still feels like it's going to be down to, yeah, he can hit this one. He can hit this one, but if it was down to this, it would be simple enough for Trump, but the way that he's going to be hitting that one thin on the edge, it's going to be down to try and make sure that cue ball avoids the contact with the right corner. And to be fair, whether he was able to swerve around it or he could see enough of that red to be played in full ball, he just puts it carefully towards the side cushion and plants that cue ball to be lined up for the black ball cushion. All players have purple and black badges. Looks like these two not different. Well, agree. But once again, we've seen the couple of frames worth of drama. Probably the only one was at this stage of the match was the first frame, with so many snookers to try and find from Trump's point of view, and in the end, him able to find all three of them, and Zhao to be the one that has got the last laugh and still winning the first frame. Now, what's he going to be here? Because it's certainly going to be the closest match, the closest frame ever since their opening encounter, because all the remaining three seem to have gone really dominantly, either in the way of Zhao by a scoreline to 0 or to 6 and 13 in favour of Trump on a couple of those previous occasions. Is Trump thinking about going for a long red into the corner? It's going to be way too risky for me to be doing that because he's always going to have a red over the left corner. And, well, unless he flukes this red, he's about to leave it over the yellow pocket. Now, how much of a distance there is in between the cue ball and the black ball cushion, but ultimately, how much of the distance there is in between the red and the yellow pocket, because, from this angle, it looks like it's impossible for Xington to miss. But to be fair, I wouldn't really be surprised if this one too go missing. Brilliant shot there, nicely into the middle. And now it is going to be yellow or brown to choose from. Yeah, it was always going to be down to just one miss there for either one of those players, or a potential chance to be given away. And that's exactly what happened with Trump. So it does look like his streak of winning 2 frames on the bounce is about to come to an end. Although Zhao has played a bit of a careless shot in terms of power judgment. He got that cue ball to be way lower than he would have liked it to be. And now he's got the red to be taken into the right middle, which, is the pocket that he would have been aiming for. It's just not one of those reds that you feel like he would have been trying to take on. And at the end, he decided to go for option C there. So he's had, probably not enough of the pocket to be aiming there from the second red. So in the end, he had to go for red number 3 and carefully take it towards the right corner. Now it's going to have 9 points of an advantage. Trying to take the paint, which was missed previously in the 4th frame out there. It's not going to be missed on this time around, though. Taken nicely into the heart of the pocket. So just needs to try and keep that cue ball to be heading up and down the table for 4 more shots there. And then may still need the yellow to be taken. Depends on how many of those points he's going to be able to score. As that number doesn't seem like he's going to be getting any better. Because of the 3 reds that he's taken, he's about to take the yellow for the second time. Which, to be fair, it's only going to force him to be playing a couple more of those shots. But as we've seen on a couple of those occasions sometimes with Higgins, Trump, Selby to an extent, and Robertson especially not yesterday, the day before, sometimes the easiest of those reds colours or anything on the snooker table can be missed. So you always try and get that one down to playing as few shots as you can. Overplayed for this red though. Finds himself with a bit of a wider line, which, could be the blessing in disguise in relation to the positional play being easier. But of course it makes the angle to try and pot the red a little bit more difficult for you. But he's taking that one superbly well. And look at the position that he has got on the yellow. And bound to take it for probably the 4th time there. Because he's going to take it once. and then it's going to be respotted after the, of course, because the previous yellow was taken as a colour after the red, and now it's about to be the part of the 6-colour clearance, which Zhao will need. Is about to be lined up with 23 points of the advantage, so it is going to be the green that will take him over the finish line and put him 26 points clear, whilst only having 22 of those at the table. At the end, it is going to be Zhao that is able to punish Chomp for his mistakes in his frame, and once again, Chomp just doesn't seem like he's able to exploit everything out of his game, even when he does have the chances, and when he goes through, the difficult starting point. Getting over the line seemed like still a little bit of an issue there for Judd. But this is why he had to win those previous 2 frames, because even now he finds himself only being 2 frames down, and now Zhao is not going to be able to make the blue in, so he will be the break of 25 from Zhao. Points left at 18. There's not going to be any points for Chomp to carry on, and now Zhao takes a 3-2 over lead against Chomp. This is going to be very interesting to see the way that the remainder of the match will go, because for now, it is Zhao that takes the lead and makes sure he's not going to be the one losing by 6 frames to 2. So, yeah, could still be getting my score prediction right, because I did say Zhao was going to win 6 frames to 2. But, unless he gets himself in a 4-all draw, I feel like he's going to be happy with this one, because, surely he's not going to lose 3 frames on the bounty, although we've seen that happen beforehand, and something that, Chomp will be dreaming about before the start of the, 6th frame. And, of course, it's now going to be a break-off shot for Zhao, so potentially could be used as an advantage in favour of Chomp, but at the same time, how many of those instances have we seen beforehand where a break-off shot by Xington is taken so well that it's actually Chomp that finds himself in a little bit of trouble and, puts him on the back foot for a couple of those shots, and then by the moment that he finds himself out of that trouble, Xington seems like he's got everything under control and able to put a couple more of those reds, whether it is going to be into the left or the right corner of the table. For now, once again, the stage is set, the lights are on, and just waiting for the referee to announce the start of the 6th frame. So, by the way, how long have we been going for? 2 hours exactly, which is not too bad for 5 frames plus the intermission. Would have probably expected it to be a little bit quicker, but at the same time, try and make sure you spread the enjoyment out across the, even more of the playing time. For now, to spread out the enjoyment even more, he needs to be making sure that Chomp gets himself on the score sheet again, and just tries to make sure he doesn't allow Zhao to be running away with this one, because it felt like Chomp is going to be better of a front runner because he's got a better all-around game. Xington, as we all been saying, he's got a brilliant A game. He doesn't really have any sort of plan B or plan C, which he can try and use to a better extent, which of course is something that Chomp certainly possesses, and something that you need to have as the world number 1, although, 12 months later, when Zhao gets all the points that, of course, he wasn't competing for at the previous part of the season, he could potentially still be a comfortable world number 1 and have that Crucible title to defend by the end of next season point. For now, he's about to be lined up with a break-off shot here again. As you can see, the camera is going to be on his poster, right next to Neil Robertson, the man that Chomp, of course, managed to beat. And now, it is going to be Zhao to be breaking off for the 6th frame. Can he try and make it 4-2 an advantage and make it a match worth of patterns of 2 frames that you win, then your opponent wins 2 more of those, and then he's going to be back down to you to try and restore that advantage to be 2 frames again. It's a decent break off in terms of the line that he was taking, but it seems like it's going to be a little bit far away from the green, so that Chomp is not going to be snookered after the end of this shot. So what's going to be here for Chomp? And it's going to be a fantastic red that he's taken. Finally, a long red that seems like it's paid dividends here for Chomp, because they don't really know what the camera work was all about. Having such a generic shot of Chomp and not concentrating on the potting angle at all, as if he was playing a safety. But now, he's missed the blue like that before into the yellow pocket. Can he try and make this one into the green pocket? I have got a feeling that he will. And look at that, it certainly seems like he's going to be up for it. Just needs to try and put the disappointment of the previous frame behind him. And after everything that's happened in the first 2 frames, everything that happened in the 5th frame, he will be absolutely, for me, he will be absolutely delighted with having, 4-all of a scoreline after the first 8 frames. Wow, that is a horrible miss. I mean, talk about that. That is absolutely unacceptable. How close that red was to the left corner. How difficult was it for Chomp to miss that one? And he somehow managed to do that. So only 6 points scored. The red to be over the pocket. Well, this is going to be an absolute gift here for Zhao. And it's the gift that he'll try to leave until later. Because he's got the line of taking the red into the right corner instead. So he clearly had the angle to try and take this one to the blue. And of course, this gives him the full control of trying to split those reds away from each other. But it does seem like, slightly overplayed for the blue. So the brilliant, evil plan of Zhao to try and use that red as the insurance for himself until the end point of the frame. Looks like it is going to come to the end. Wants to be a little bit lower than that on the black, but he should be fine there. He needs any sort of minimal angle to try and get that cue to be stuck to those reds from underneath, whether he's going to be down to spread those ones away or just to try and take the red into the corner. He was the latter at the end. But still, it's a really good shot there for you not to lose control of the cue ball and make sure you are going to be positioned nicely for this red. About to be taken into the right part of the table. So, 9 points of a lead. And what's he going to be here for Zhao? Can he try and take the black away? Whilst having that cue ball to be run into those reds. But this time around, clearly with intention to try and separate those ones away. Although for now, seems like he's going very much the way the Chomp prefers to play the game. Take all of those loose reds. And, despite making a couple of contacts with a couple of them as well, seems like he's going to try and make it into the bunch now. But wrong timing for me. I don't know why he would try and do that now. But he wasn't going to do it from the black because, if you're going to try and play the patient game, surely you have to play it till the end. Now he's going to have to be bridging over a red awkwardly with his hand placement. But still takes that black nicely, which to be fair, wasn't a shot that you can take for granted. But now, it is probably going to make that shot worth it. Because, the reds were spread out perfectly. It was just all about the position that he would have had struggling a little bit on the black. Not having the chance to be potting the pink or the blue. But once again, when it comes down to executing those chances, Zhao is still going to be probably, the quickest player to do it, certainly. Not going to say the best, because the consistency is still probably not the word associated with him, but he's had such a lot, certainly in 2026, I would say that. And in the top two, alongside the man that he's going to be up against now, but also when it comes to a couple of latest tournaments, he's been struggling for form there at the Welsh and the World Open. Seems to have got himself back to the form that has allowed him to be winning the Players' Championship and the Hong Kong Grand Prix, also known as the World Grand Prix, against the likes of Jaganda and John Higgins. So then another black to be taken into the left corner, carefully placing the cue ball to be positioned for the red here into the middle, which is never an ideal case for the players because, you want to try and make sure you avoid those type of shots, especially when you have to take another red out of the position. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm really surprised that he's taken this one because look how tight it is going to be for him to try and take this red into the middle. Look at that, brilliant though, by Zhao, taking that with so much power, so much confidence in himself, and just trying to take it with a black as well, that he would have been lined up slightly awkwardly for. And this has been a textbook break there. Well, started with such a bad miss from Chomp, and it certainly is the one that, could be the turning point of the match. I feel like we all hope that it won't be, unless you are the fan of Zhao, which, on some cases I am, but very much until it gets to the final, and then you still want to see very much the players try and take it all the way. And then you're going to see the best one to win it. For now, the best in the last couple of frames certainly has been Zhao, but look at this miss from Chomp. I mean, horrible way to somehow overcut the reds when it looked like it was going to be unmissable. And Zhao there exploiting, a very straight line of a shot on the red, about to be taken into the corner. So 57 points of a lead, 64 with the black, and they'll be down to just one more red that he needs. And then it is going to be 4-2 of a scoreline in the making. And the pattern of you win 2 frames, I win 2 frames, and then you win 2 frames again from Chomp seems like it is shaping to be true. And once again, it is going to be Zhao with a dominant frame win. He's managed to come away from the previous one to be quite a test for him, but now it seems like he is going to have himself to be set up in the perfect pace in relation to the frame. And now it's going to be 2, and one more red to be taken here towards the green pocket. What's it going to be in relation to those colours for him to try and achieve? Because, we are looking at a potential first century of the match. Certainly is going to be the highest break that Zhao Ziton has achieved here so far. And, of course, the same goes with Watchalong, with still having that 61 points as the only break of 60 plus that he had. 50 plus as well. And just carefully trying to plan that cue ball to be on the side cushion, but needed to be absolutely spot on to be on the side. This time around, he's going to have to try and take it for the black. It makes it a very difficult shot to be taken, but look at that. Brilliant placement of the red, and takes that one away without real pressure, he would seem. Always going to find himself with a difficult angle on the black as well, but takes this one with no problem. And as long as this red is going to go past the yellow, he should be lined up nicely for the red. About to disappear at the top end of the table. Can he try and see enough of the red next to the pink though? Because, this is going to be the way for him to try and get this century to be won. The answer seemed like he can. And let's see about the queuing. And he needed to try and take this red around the table. This is a really nice attempt. It was close. It wasn't quite close enough, but that would have been certainly a shot of the Tour Championship if he made that one in. And he would have been even better with that red that he's taken against Higgins yesterday, despite having another red to be covering 25% of the pocket. For now, it is still going to be a break of 91 points, which gets him a 40 over lead. And now Trump finds himself in a very similar position to the one that he was in after losing out on the opening 2 frames of the session. It is now Zhao Ziton 4, Trump 2. Many thanks to the more than 1.k viewers. Please hit the like and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Crucible coming. Thanks again. Yes, Letitia, lovely message in chat there. And feel free to hit the like and subscribe to the channel. This is going to be a cracker of, a Crucible showdown. And we still hope that it is going to be an absolute mental, from the good point of it, of a shakedown in terms of the final of the Tour Championship. Being there to deliver, the semi-finals have been probably a little bit too one-sided, certainly on John Higgins' point, but can we try and see a little bit more of the action from the likes of Watchalong and Zhao Ziton? Certainly from the latter, we have seen that, as he manages to, probably accomplish mission minimum for himself, as you're going to be happy with heading into the second session. Try and leave that as 4 frames each. Now, Trump is going to be down to winning the remaining 2 frames, but something that he needs to do is to win at least one of those 2. And unless that is the case, then I'm going to be really surprised, by the way, because I genuinely, with all my heart, thought the only chance for Zhao to win this session by 6 frames to 2 was going to be taking more than 3 or more frames away at the starting point, so have a 3 or a 4-0 lead against Trump, and then allow him to come back later on in the session. But for now, he's managed to come back at before the first intermission, but ever since the walkout back onto the arena, it seems like he's been way below average, and now finds himself in a bit of a bad place here when it comes to having a relationship with probably the cue ball, because he hasn't been queuing as well as he has done beforehand, but also it just doesn't seem like he's comfortable with the way the pace of the table goes. Of course, it won't be relevant to the table 1 setup because, he's been playing at table 1 very much every single one of his matches against Allen, against, Murphy, and then against Robertson as well. Because at some point it was down to him getting the benefit of the 1 table format. And then, of course, the semi-finals would have been played at the, on different days there, which leaves you with a single table to be choosing away from. Now, the trophy is going to be waiting, and for now, it seems like Zhao Ziton is going to be closer to the trophy technically, of course, than being on the right side of the setup, same way as the actual trophy is going to be set up. And now it is going to be Trump to try and make his way a little bit closer as he trails by 4 frames to 2, and trying to make sure that he'll take this match to the very end, despite having a bit of a negative record when it comes to those first session matches, especially the couple that he had against Mark Selby. The first one probably was down to 5-3, not quite as bad, but, he was making those long reds in the previous frame, but now it's going to be the turn of Zhao Ziton to try and step in on the gas pedal. And has he managed to get a little bit of fortune in relation to the ball colours? The green and brown are going to be out of position, so it's going to be yellow or nothing. The first time in the entirety of the match that we're going to see something to be available of a break-off I think this will be the first final Xington loses. Well, for now, it certainly doesn't seem like he's too close to that. Has he somehow managed to overcut the yellow? Wow, that is extreme shot there. And I don't know how he's managed to get to that point. It was always going to be down to just trying to undercut the yellow there. But somehow he's managed to leave the yellow at the table without dropping this one in. Still playing for the red into the corner. Trump needs to cue this one to perfection. Is he going to be able to do that? No, he wasn't. And now the yellow may actually find himself to be disappearing. It was one of those shots there that if Chum makes it in, he was going to be set up for a great frame win. Now, he's managed to open up the reds, missing out on the reds, and pot success 84% from Chum, only 86% for Zhao, which does seem like a bit of a surprising result. But at the end point, it is going to be Zhao Xington to be coming back to the table and having a great chance to try and take it on the black again, having 2 points as the advantage. Of course, unable to take it from the first time on the yellow, but, Trump was always going to have that difficult red to be taken into the corner. He tried to take that with full power, which, is one of those shots that Xington was playing in the previous couple of frames. It's one of those that can either leave you with a miss, or it can leave you with winning the frame, pretty much being the certain point of the next 15 minutes or so. And now Zhao is about to go on a little bit of a quest of his own, trying to take those reds carefully into the corner and make sure he makes even more of those to be lined up in the open play. So it makes it a break of 9 points here. About to be lined up for the black for the second time here. And Trump is going to be sat in his seat, which, as I say, I'm very surprised with the pot success being 86 there from Zhao Xington, because he may be down to a couple of long pots that he missed, because it seemed like he's absolutely dominating the last couple of frames here, especially the ones ever since the intermission. Because it was a little bit of a before and after that break of 15 minutes, because we've seen, Trump have a really good line of taking those frames for fun at some points, with not leaving a chance away to Zhao Xington on the frame before at all. It was a bit of a close battle in frame number 3, but you probably have to feel like, very much since the starting point, it was always going to be down to frame number 4 to lose. And then, 15 minutes later, it seemed like the match has turned on its head completely, and now it's going to be down to taking the red towards the right corner and making sure it is now going to be Zhao Xington to try and take the spotlight away. Something that he has been doing every single match that he's been playing in the first attempt throughout this season, apart from the 2 that he's lost very comfortably to Karen Wilson and Wu Yize, both of them to come in China. And of course, this tournament is going to be played in the United Kingdom, same as Sheffield. So we are going to stay in the home of snooker for a while. But what's he going to be to try and end it on a high? Is he going to be Xington to show the world on what he's capable of and show the world a potential practice of what's about to come at the Crucible? Played a bit of a bad shot here, as much as, it's going to be down to a centimetre or 2, but could have easily been slightly higher up the table in relation to the black. 9 out of 10 red shots that we've seen him take, and this is going to be, taken nicely into the front part of the table there, because he can't afford to be using too much of the backhand jaw. Well, I'll tell you what, it seemed like he's playing this shot about as well as he could have, but is he going to be on absolutely nothing? I mean, it'll be a bit of a robbery that, if that is the case. Yeah, he's got 3 reds to be exactly in the way of each other, which leaves him with a bit of a difficult shot to be taken into the middle. It feels like one of those that he's missed previously against, I can't remember where he was right at the start of this match, or the one against Higgins, but this one is going to find the back of the pocket perfectly well, and look at his position on the black. He could not have played this one any better, and have a look at the replay, straight into the pocket, a lovely kiss of those reds, and still bouncing that cubble around like a madman, while still controlling that chaos on the table, very much with the end result being the one that he would have been dreaming around. And I'll tell you what, I said Trump could try and turn this one into a repetition of the champions of champions, because for now, Trump has gone on winning 2 frames with a bounce. Of course, at the November match, he's managed to win 6 frames on the bounce and turn that 2 frames of a deficit into 6-2 win. For now, it seemed like Zhao Xington is about to be 1 frame away from taking the perfect revenge. And this is going to turn this frame number 8 as to absolutely must-win frame for Trump, but with hand on heart, genuinely can't imagine the way that he's going to be able to win it, because for now it just seemed like he's playing by far the second best and being the number 2 here at the table. And especially if you look at the way the last couple of frames have gone, the break of 54 here and still counting with having 4 more easier reds to be taken, could easily be turning into a century break later on. And of course a break of 91 at the previous frame, only a couple of shots away from making it the first century of the final. So now 63 points ahead, 75 at the table. So it's going to be the break of 62, which gets him into this position where he needs to be taking a red and a color, which is going to be more expensive than the brown. The blue will certainly suit that, and he should be lined up nicely for the blue to be taken into the middle, get himself lined up for probably the shot in behind. Well, he doesn't really need to be doing that, just have a huge bounce of the cue ball through the black ball cushion, and the shot into the left corner of one of those 2 reds will certainly suit him nicely for having a guaranteed lead after the first session. And this has been a lot more like it ever since the intermission. The average frame time has certainly been way higher than anything that we've seen in the first 4 of those frames. Less than 2.5 hours, and we are now going to be down to approaching the last frame of the session. And what is he going to be? Is he going to be a dominant win for Zhao Xington and making himself very much the person to catch in the evening session by 6 frames to 2, which he'll have the lead off? We're now about to be carefully positioned for the reds. Once again, he wants to try and keep that century hunt going with, with him having a bit of a century drought against Higgins, despite having such a dominant win of 10 frames to 1. He does seem like that story of 100 centuries in the season is going to finally come to an end, because, it was opportunistic anyway, and very optimistic Zhao Xington fans would have been saying that he's still very much on there. But for now, he's about to keep his chances for another century in this particular tournament to be alive. He needs to be taking the black away, and carefully finds that cue ball to be heading past the right side cushion, with the temptation of taking the red away certainly being in there. Is now about to make a break of 92 points, which makes it the highest of what we've seen so far. Carefully take the red away, but he is going to be leaving himself with 93 points worth of a break here that he scores. So needs the blue to be taken into the right middle, and then the cue ball is going to bounce carefully towards this red. Well, he's trying to clearly make contact with it, and in the end, doesn't seem like we are going to be seeing a century break. And he's saying it's a wasp there, so Zhao is going to try and keep away from the target area. It's certainly something that, probably the only thing that seemed to have scared him so far, the wasp being alongside the brown and green. We've seen those at the Crucible, but it seems like he's just going to leave it and not bother about it. But whether it was the wasp that he can try and blame, the century wasn't on, but it's still going to be a fantastic break of 98 points, which will leave Zhao Xington to be the man having 189 points without answer. And it is now going to be over to you, Jotron. You need to win the frame number 8, otherwise you'll find yourself to be in the world of trouble. The person that won't find themselves in the world of trouble until at least the frame number 11 is going to have to be Zhao Xington, as we seem to need the little bit of a security backup to try and get the wasp out of play. And there we go, the job is done. So now we can worry about the re-rack of the yellow, which wasn't the only colour placed out of the ball colours. And then of course the reds to be re-racked for one last time ahead of this afternoon session to be over. And well, what a turnaround it has been from the first intermission. It looked like it was, especially what it looked like at the start of the 5th frame. Trump was the one looking to try and make it 3-2 of an advantage in his favour. Now it seems like he is going to be trying to fight back for a 3-5 of a deficit to be very much dreamland ahead of the evening session for him. Because even though it's going to be 58% in favour of Zhao Xington in relation to who's going to be winning the first session out there, draw, once again, not going to be valued at all. Only 5 of those percent, and 36 of those to come the way of Jotron. So, I mean, for now, it's only 7 frames in, but Zhao is certainly, making it look very easy for himself, and just proving once again why he's managed to have such a good record of those finals in the previous 5 that he's played, against Yang Bintao, against Luca Broussel, against Mark Williams, and against the likes of Zhang Anda and John Higgins. Yet to have a final to be played against the same player though. Of course, not going to happen against Yang Bintao or probably Luca Broussel for very different reasons. But when it comes to the likes of Williams, Higgins and Anda, he could be in there to try and play either one of them. Of course, the final against Zhang would have been probably a little bit different because those two being great friends, and being both of them to have from China, but at the same time, just sharing the practice room together. And at the end point, it was all smiles, even though, of course, Zhang would have been disappointed, despite looked like he was able to take that final all the way. That loss of the 14th frame clearly was the last nail in the coffin. Now, is he going to be the last frame there to be won from Zhao Xingtong? Can he try and make it a 6-2 of a gap, or is he going to be Trump to try and show the world that he's still going to be the man to try and challenge for that, the world number 1 spot and another title to be his for the taking? And it is going to be, so confirmation from the referee, as you would expect, the final frame of the session, Zhao Xingtong to break. So far, the only time where the break-off shot has led to a chance was in the previous frame. Let's see if the story is about to be repeated again here. It wasn't the previous frame, wasn't it? Because it was Trump that was breaking off, and Zhao Xingtong was able to go for a fantastic long red. Didn't really lead him to anything because, of course, he went on to miss the yellow. And now Trump seems like, well, you talk about Trump trying to bring his B and C game. For now, it just seems like he's stuck with the A game not working really, because once again, he's gone for a shot which wasn't really there, of a long red into the corner. And despite him bringing that cue ball into a safe place, missed that red by a little bit more of a margin. And the contact with the main pack would have been impossible to avoid. Those are the shots that Zhao can afford to play, but certainly not something that you want to try and do when you're going to be 5-2 down at a risk of being 6-2 down. And look at that for the cubing. Brilliant there from Zhao Xingtong, and by far the long red of the match. Wow, how close that cue ball was towards the ball cushion. Something that you can't really blame Trump for. I mean, I said it was risky, but I certainly didn't mean leaving a red like that was risky. And can he try and cut this black in? The answer is, well, you already know it. It's brilliant once again from Xingtong. And just one shot, and he's two shots really, because the black still is going to be certainly worth a mention. But what a turnaround this has been for the second mini session. And once again, what a quick start this has been for Zhao Xingtong. One shot that Trump has played in the last 15 minutes or so, and it looks like it is going to be the only shot of this frame for now, because, the way that he had breaks of 91, 98, it's just a matter of time until he makes it 3 out of 3 there. This is going to be a huge shot for this frame to be taken all the way. Didn't want to have that extra contact on the cue ball, which will force him wide on the black. But he's managed to, well, I was going to say he's managed to separate the reds nicely. It was nicer on some of those occasions in the previous couple of frames. And once again, using that backhand draw nicely with the black. And despite having an unwanted cannon on the red next to the right middle, he's still going to be positioned nicely for the red to be taken into the left corner. I would love Xingtong versus Crucible versus Brissell match at the Crucible, because that's where Luca plays his best. Yeah, to be fair, it's really difficult to argue with that, because he doesn't seem to place anywhere else there, especially when he gets to the quarterfinals or something. He's managed to play there at the quarterfinal against Trump last season, managed to put up a decent fight until the end, where Trump seemed like he was just able to take a little bit more consistency at the end point of a match and get himself through to the clash with Williams at the semi-final. But I tell you what, that part of the draw potentially would have seen a showdown in between Xingtong against Brissell. So, we were not too far away from that last year. Could we try and see that in 2026? Of course, it will be under very different circumstances, because, the Brissell is now going to be a qualifier, having to come through at least 2 of those matches, with him being the world number 43 at some stage of the season. I'm not sure if he's managed to drop even further now. And, well, Zhao seemed like he was under a little bit of pressure in terms of the decision to be made. He's had 2 raids, none of them was pretty in relation to having a colour to be played after either one of those 2. And he's going to have the angle on the black, but ideally he would have liked to be having the opposite side of the black to be played with. And this is exactly why. This is going to be a red potentially given away. No, it won't be, because the black is going to come in the way of the red. And once again, a hand of apology is going to go up from Zhao Xingtong, because I'm not going to say he's had loads of the run of the ball, but, a couple of shots in the match where you probably have to put that down to it as well. So 31 points that he scores. Looks like it is going to be, once again, a century-less session here. in between one of the probably best attacking players when it comes to making centuries of the season, but also when it comes to taking it as a frame-winning opportunity from very much the first time that you see your opponent leave yourself an easy chance. So carefully taking the cue ball onto the right side. It's going to be for Zhao because Trump has already played his previous safety whilst being so close to those reds. But didn't seem like he was able to put Xington under a real bit of pressure. And now it's going to be down to that cue ball to be taken into the right part of the table. Zhao is what Ronnie said years ago what he would be. Not sure if you talk about Ronnie himself, but Ronnie has played Zhao in the English Open of 2018 or somewhere in that period, because that was the first serious meeting between the two of them, and certainly the one that announced Zhao Xington to be the player that he is right now to the rest of the world. Well, Trump seems to have played a very narrow line of a shot there in between a disaster and a potential shot of brilliance, because the cannon that he got on the brown seems like he put the cue ball safe in relation to that red. So the only way that Zhao can try and make contact with those reds is through a plant. And, well, he hasn't tried to do that. He's hit those reds way too thin. So whether he has put him under pressure, but it looks like Trump will surely have access to this red. The same red that he's, he was the one to be putting over the left corner. And surely the last chance of the session, 20.5 minutes there since his last pot time. And in the meantime, Zhao was able to win 2.5 frames. That's not even considering this one. Now the red is in, but it was always going to be in. Where's the position on the blue? Somewhere else probably, because Trump doesn't seem like he's got it here. I mean, he is going to be positioned on the blue just about fine there, but he needs to be taking the white to the top end of the table, which is never nice. He's going to have the green in a slight awkward place there as well, so he needs to be doing that from the left side cushion, which limits his options even more. But also the brown is going to be out of its own spot, which, I'll tell you what, you may have to be taking this cue ball in between the yellow and brown, and with the brown being closer to the yellow, it just seems like it may not even be worth it to be taking a shot into the right middle. You may have to try and play this one towards the green pocket. He's done that, and as soon as he managed to land on this red with just about enough of the line that wouldn't put him under too much pressure to try and take the red away, this is actually going to be probably the only red which would be classified as difficult. Yes, that one is going to be guarding the black away, which you still need to try and put towards its own spot there. But, the reds are the ones that wins you frames. And for now, it is John marching on towards taking another red nicely. It's a really nice shot there, and he comes under a very, very important period here of this match. And a bit of a do or die as well, because 6-2, you're going to have to try and dig really hard in terms of your research to try and find the last time where Zhao Xington managed to lose the match, despite leading 6 frames to 2. And you may not even be able to find it across his entire career, because the one that springs to mind was a pretty close match against Wilson. He wasn't leading against Weezer so far this season at the semi-finals of Nanjing. And the match that he had against Wilson was 5 frames each there at some point. Not sure if Zhao was the one dominating the first session, but anyway, he certainly wasn't able to get over the line. Now Trump plays another shot on the green, and has he managed to get that cue ball close enough to those reds? I mean, the position for him, to be fair, doesn't seem to get any better, because he's about to have so many of those reds to be in the way of the pink. But once again, utilising the blue that he's got available quite well. Could have been straighter on it, to be fair. Too much of the angle doesn't really help the case either. But he may have to just try and take this cue ball into the pink. And he's played this shot absolutely perfectly out there. This is the shot that will potentially keep him alive in this frame. Not going to say this is the one that will win him the frame, but it's certainly the one that frees up the pink. And now, small shot selection once again, as Trump tries to take the red closer to the pink spot. Make sure as soon as he pots the pink, that's going to be the colour for him to try and use until the end point of the frame. But once again, the factor of him being a couple of points behind, even at this stage, despite making a break of 23 points, it is going to be, imagine how good Zhao can become off if he has Ronnie as his coach. But we're not really going to have as his coach, really, because, as much as Ronnie says the records doesn't matter to him, I mean, imagine trying to coach a guy that will be the one to break all of your records. I mean, so coaching your worst enemy there, which I know, Ronnie's probably not going to see Zhao Xington like that, but he's certainly not going to be You know, I know he's going to try and stick around for the punditry and doing the expertise of the matches like he's done in 2023, when he lost out to Brazil and he was analysing his match with, I'm not sure if he was doing the match with Selby, but he certainly was doing the match against Zhao. But I feel like coaching someone that may be the one to be, not going to say shadow his legacy there, but maybe to a certain extent do that. So it doesn't really sit well with me. I'm not sure if Ronnie's going to be doing that because he's not really the normal player, as Steve Davis will tell you. For now, back onto Trump. He's about to take probably the last of those easy reds when it comes to having the paint to be the colour that he makes his sort of break shots around. And he doesn't want to be positioned with the top side of this red, because that inevitably puts him with having to play this shot with loads of power, trying to take the cue ball around the table and get himself positioned for the pink. Once again to the middle. Seems like he's going to be way out of line there. I mean, he doesn't need to be doing anything here, but on the positional side of things, but he's still going to have the risk of missing the pink. Just about gets that one in. I mean, it touched a little bit of the front jaw, but the line and the face of the pink was certainly enough there for the colour to disappear. Now puts himself 13 points ahead of this frame, but will need every single one of those reds to say the least if he wants to try and win the frame. And I'm not sure if that was planned, but it seemed like he may have played a bit of a genius shot there, because it looked like he was trying to get around the black and position himself for the pink. Instead, he's about to be taking the black with a perfect angle on the black, and at the same time still dropping that cue ball to be lined up for the red, which, I mean, he could have played this shot a little bit better, as much as he was always going to be down to not being too straight, not being too far away from the line. This is anything but easy, and he needs to be putting that cue ball safe towards the top end of the table. Overcut it to me. Is he going to stay? He will stay. Overcut that one to me straight away. Caught way too much of the front jaw, and even in relation to the pace that he had, he probably had a little bit too little pace for that red to be dropping in there with the line, but he was way too close to the black ball cushion to start with. And yeah, you can't afford to be heading red so close towards the the black ball cushion. And that red, unfortunately for Trump, he was always going to stay out. And so let's have a look what Zhao is going to be able to do here, as he finds himself lined up with 21 points of a difference, about to take the red away. But ultimately, what's he going to be able to do with the last of those reds? I mean, he's taken the first red or the black, and he's still going to be positioned for one more red to be taken for it to be a break off potentially up to 43 points to try and take a commanding lead of 6 frames to 2 and surely leave it down to the whole match to be chasing down there from Trump. Is he going to be able to take this red? No, he won't. Where's the cue ball going to be left? And he's going to be left on the red. And you can see that, and you can hear what the crowd think about it. They're certainly going to be urging Trump to try and make a real battle out of it. 8 points to a break is not going to be enough yet for Zhao. A red, a collar, and a couple of bulk as well to be taking this frame away. And surely now, no way back for Zhao in this particular frame, but still, it is going to be his session number 2 to lose, and his match to lose as well, because now Trump finds himself firing off a very important red as long as he finishes with the black and the yellow. The black is certainly going to be in. That leaves him with 21 points of a difference. So exactly the same as we've seen with Zhao on the previous frame, where he needed that green to be frame ball for him to be 26 points clear. It's about to be the same story here for Trump, that will still find himself just about alive in the contention. 6-2, you feel like he was always going to be playing the chase game until the end of the match. Right now, as he gets the green, he's still going to be alive with this one. Likely 5-3, of course it is, because the frame ball has just been taken, and now Trump will be able to get himself lined up with at least something to think about in terms of his form. But ultimately, of course, it gives him a little bit more of freedom based off what he's going to be doing in that second session, based off his game, his long shot approach, whether he's going to have to try and mix it up with a safety battle, try and make it a little bit uncomfortable there for Zhao. We'll have to wait and see, but for now, it is going to be the break of 28 points, which makes it the end of the first session, and Watchalong at last ends that one on a little bit of a high. Zhao could have easily had a 6-2 of an advantage to be taken into the evening session. In the end, that wasn't the case, but still, look at the points difference that he's got. More than 186 points there that he has got over Judd Trump in the previous 8 frames. But ultimately, probably the most important frame of the session. We've seen a couple of those already, but the 8th one surely was the difference in between having another match of, very similar to the one that we would have seen against Judd Trump and Mark Selby, where Trump was trying to chase down Selby's tail there, and he wasn't able to do it until the end of the UK Championship, or you could see the Champion of Champions, where he was able to stick with Selby, never ahead, and in the end, second session was the one that Mark has managed to disappear and land the first title of the Triple Crown of the season. But yeah, listen, talk about those matches that were important and were potentially congested with a bit of action. You probably had to certainly put that down to the 8th frame, probably down to frame number, frame number 5 as well, straight after the intermission, where Trump had a chance to try and make himself to be the one with a 3-2 of a lead. He wasn't able to, come up with a good execution of that chance. But now it is going to be 65 points that plays 35 in favour of Zhao, and he still finds himself in a really good condition for the remainder of the, the second session. Because right now, probably the first frame where he was loads of drama with those snookers, where Trump wasn't quite able to, finish the job despite finding the 3 snookers that he would have been looking for. Then the 5th frame, and then of course the frame number 8. And the interesting thing about every single one of those frames, apart from the one number 8, is that Zhao, whenever he was close, or whenever he was a chance to be given away to the opposition, he was in ton to be winning it at the end. He wasn't able to do that with frame number 8, and for the neutral, that is absolutely music to the ears. Because ever since that intermission again, 65 plays 35, 91 plays 6, 99 plays 0, with the breaks of 91 and 98 to be the only breaks of 50 plus before, of course, that Trump break of 52 points to make it 80 points at the end. And, it's the highest that Trump has managed to achieve, but it certainly wasn't enough to make it a draw after the opening 8 frames. Good night. Yes, it's going to be a good night setup though, because Trump and Zington are going to obviously realise that it's not one for either one of them, but still feel like if Zington is going to be able to try and keep his game in a really good manner and a really good shape, then he's going to be his final to lose. But you never quite know. We've seen incredible comebacks already. They probably never finished all the way to the end with the likes of Watchalong against Mark Cullen, and also Ronnie O'Sullivan against Neil Rhodes. But we also have seen Mark Zhao against Judd Trump, but we also have seen the brilliant story of Chipchayanu, where he was able to find himself 4 frames to 0 down and still able to overcome and make a maximum in frame number 16 on his way to a 10-7 win against the Rocket Ronnie O'Sullivan. And once again, that's probably going to be it there. Not a lot to say based on the way that this match has gone. A really good performance, a bit of drama at the end of it as well, but you have to say Zhao is going to be the one that will be feeling a little bit unlucky and, disappointed with the way that he's ended the first session. Could have been 6-2, would have been a different story, but the first frame and the first couple of those frames at the session number 2 will be the ones that tell you the picture of the way that this final is either going to turn around and it's going to be another turning point as the one we've seen in frame number 5, or is it going to be the one that he will remember for the remainder of the season, and it's the only final for now that he's going to be looking to lose. Trump has got a long way ahead of himself, but the work for Zhao is not quite done just yet. When is Yang Mitao coming back from suspension? I feel like it's going to be in 2027, but I don't really know, and to be perfectly honest, I don't really care. Anyway, on a bit of a positive note of Judd Trump still having a chance to come back against Zhao, he'll be down to those 2 players to contest the final in session 2. For now, thank you for sticking with me. Feel free to hit the like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. Back with the second session, and then the run to the Crucible and the run to the one-table format. It's announced the Crucible is going to be kept at Sheffield in 2045 there, with it going for a renovation and 2028. Let me know, by the way, where do you think the snooker world should go for the World Championship at the point where Sheffield is going to be renovated? Once again, thank you all for sticking with it, and hoping that this match will go to the end at the second session. We'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching, and see you around at the second session. Stay tuned in.